Chapter 569. What's going on? The Avengers team who rushed to the scene couldn't help but be stunned. This was the first time they saw the enchantress being charmed by someone else. In fact, Nian himself is a bit strange. He looked down at the charming witch who suddenly clamped her legs together and sat down softly. Her arms tightly hugging his left leg. Her confused beautiful eyes seemed to have a pair of pink hearts, and she raised her white neck with a look of pleading. Look. A flash of understanding suddenly flashed in Nian's eyes. The other party previously wanted to charm himself through some unique magic, but he was in Wanda's Scarlet mode, and chaos magic could even secretly tamper with cause and effect and reality. Therefore, when the charming witch saw his true appearance, she was directly counterattacked by the charming magic. Who are you? Thor, the god of thunder, stepped forward domineeringly and calmly, holding the complete Mjolnir without cracks in his right hand, with a faint flash of thunder in his eyes. There was a clang. Red hair, Asian, young. My database does not have any information about him. I have a bad feeling, guys, he's in danger. Spider-Man looked at Nian with narrowed pupils, and the spider sense was constantly warning, making the hairs crawl all over his body under his suit. Hawkeye has taken off and unfolded the special longbow on his back, and the two fingers of his right hand are reaching for the special quiver on his back. Black Widow also loaded the special pistol she held tightly in both hands, locking her eyes tightly on the young man. My name is Nian. Nian responded with a slight smile. Seeing the familiar Avengers team again made him feel a little emotional. Although the Avengers members in front of him were not the people he knew, they were just parallel characters from other universes. But seeing the familiar superhero appearance reminded him of his original world. Although he has only traveled through multiple dimensions 3 times, perhaps many years have passed since the original world. The original world. Young whispered to himself. After he left with the Destiny Alliance, will the original world still be peaceful? Maybe, with his brother-in-law Superman Clark watching over him, he should be fine. Is that stubborn Raven still guarding the old house on the outskirts of Washington? Are Harley Quinn's pet promises still waiting for the moment of verification? Nian shook his head. He didn't know when he, a time traveler, had taken root there. After all, it was the home of him and his aunt, and it was where everything started. I really want to go back. Find Lorna and go back together. Nian thought secretly. Nian. I don't know him. Everyone in the Avengers on the field looked at each other and confirmed that the other party was an existence from other universes and time and space. The hostility in their eyes suddenly deepened a lot. Regardless of whether the opponent is a superhero or a supervillain, after all, they are not from the time and space of their universe. What if the other party wins the final victory and makes a wish that is detrimental to their universe and space? This is the chain of suspicion. Being in different universes and spaces, various suspicions will make it difficult for both parties to trust each other. What are you waiting for? Don't waste time, come on together. Upon hearing this, Thor glared at him. Boy, you are so loud, but it's not your fault, you don't know the name of our Avengers, do you? Nian smiled lightly. Quite the opposite. He couldn't be more familiar with the Avengers. Sorry, we are not hostile to you, but it is better for everyone if you abstain, Black Widow spoke slowly. Sorry, Nian shrugged and said. I have a reason to stand here. After being confirmed from the mouth of the Transcendent. Nian then made a decision to go to the end as the final winner in the current fighting world. You. Black Widow couldn't help but glare at Nian. She had a good impression of him, so she gave him a step down. Unexpectedly, the other party did not appreciate it at all. In this case, we're not polite, let's do it together. As soon as Iron Man finished speaking, the palms of his armor-covered hands suddenly lifted up, and 2 piercing white energy laser cannons burst out from the engine mouth. At the same time, Spider-Man fires electric shock webs. Black Widow pulls the trigger and shoots 3 times. Hawkeye also quickly drew his bow and shot an arrow. It would have been fine if it had been like this earlier. Nian in Scarlet mode kicked to the side and kicked the charming witch holding her thigh away. She held the seal with both hands and pushed forward hard. Immediately, a round of strange golden gun appeared in front of Nian, like a translucent magic shield, blocking all laser cannons, explosive arrows, bullets, etc. Drink. The next moment, there was a loud shouting sound. The strong man in silver armor was surrounded by crackling thunder, like an ancient god, holding the Mjolnir in his hand, turning into a human-shaped thunder and slashing forward. There was a bang. The golden body was smashed into pieces by Thor's hammer, turning into sparks and dissipating in the air. Fall down. Thor, the god of thunder, was in the air and continued to swing the thunder hammer with electric light attached, and smashed it hard at the young man. It's done. The other Avengers saw this scene and thought to themselves. Nian didn't seem to react and stood there blankly, letting Mjolnir hit his chest. At this time, a sound of breaking wind sounded, and the windbreaker behind Nian lifted up on its own, and the tough and thick corners of the clothes wrapped around the wrist of Thor, the god of thunder. Thor's eyes widened suddenly. You're too naive, even after awakening, you don't dare to get close to me with a storm axe in your hand. Nian shook his head and muttered to himself, then pushed out a palm with his right hand. This palm hit the Thor's chest, causing a spirit body to be blasted out of the body. Thor's body froze, Mjolnir fell to the ground from his hand, and then he fell down losing all consciousness. The dark red windbreaker turned into a cape with a hunting movement. Nian walked over the body of Thor with a calm face and walked towards the remaining Avengers members in front. I don't want to continue wasting time with you here. Nian's eyes glowed with light red, as if a cluster of flames were burning. He could completely hide and wait until the fighting world reaches its final stage before taking action to fight for victory. But it's still the same sentence. He couldn't wait any longer. There is no need to waste time, it would be better to take action earlier to eliminate more people and end this farce as soon as possible. Facing Nian in Scarlet mode. For some reason, the other 4 Avengers all feel like their team is surrounded by each other. Come on together. Iron Man spoke in a deep voice, erupting his engine and flying into the sky. Spider-Man, Hawkeye, and Black Widow also took action at the same time, facing the lonely Nian 4-on-1. Chapter 570. 3 minutes later. Somewhere in Dogia, the ground is full of pits. The spirit body of Thor, the god of thunder, was floating in the low air, looking at the Avengers, including his own body, falling to the ground in disarray in shock. Iron Man's original brand new steel suit was full of cracks, Spider-Man was tied up by his own spider web and a golden light magic whip, and Black Widow and Falcon tilted their heads unusually and passed out. Avengers. It's like a group annihilation. On the field. Only the young man in the peaked cap wearing a dark red cloak still stood there, holding a golden mask removed from the steel armor in his right hand. The redness in Nian's eyes in scarlet mode faded a bit. He threw the steel mask aside and dusted off his hands. He only breathed a little heavier, as if he had just finished a warm-up exercise. Why bother with him? The spirit body of Thor, god of thunder, smiled bitterly, truly feeling the gap between the other party and each other. That strange and powerful spell is enough to dismantle the scarlet ability of the steel armor at will. Even if it is hit 100,000 times, the Avengers cannot avoid the result of annihilation. We have lost, and we are convinced, the spirit body of Thor, god of thunder, spoke sincerely. Nian didn't care. Compared with the full-fledged Thor who wielded the storm axe after awakening his divine power, the current Thor is still very young, and there is no sense of achievement in defeating him. At this time, Nian suddenly glanced at a place hundreds of meters away. His spider sense seemed to detect a sense of peeping, but he glanced over but found nothing. Is it an illusion? Nian's eyes flickered and he left in one direction. Not far away. The enchantress, who had recovered from the charm, looked at the young man's leaving figure with complicated beautiful eyes. In addition to being embarrassed, she also had another strange emotion. Planet Dogia, the other side. 2 white spaceships were parked here in deathly silence, with wisps of smoke and the smell of death drifting towards the sky. Kaka. A crisp voice suddenly sounded. The metal wheelchair suddenly fell on the platform of the white spaceship, and a bald young man with disabled legs fell to the ground together with the wheelchair. Young Professor. Burnt corpses fell to the ground one after another. At a glance, they numbered more than 20. And most of them are mutants from the mutant universe. Among them, many members of the X-Men, at least seriously injured, fell everywhere in the white spaceship. Hank, the mutant who transformed into a beast, broke an arm and fell in a pool of blood on the spaceship. His right hand struggled to move in the direction of the metal wheelchair, and his red lips trembled slightly. Although he didn't make any sound, Professor X Charles knew that Beast Hank was conveying, "Professor, run away." Escape? How to escape? The X-Men were almost wiped out, and other mutants also lost their fighting power. Who would have thought that as the temporary team with the largest number of people, it would be wiped out soon after it entered the fighting world? And there is only one opponent. Professor X, Charles, felt extremely desperate. Tap. A tall gray-black figure walked towards Professor X Charles on the ground of the spacecraft. It was a man wearing a silver-plated metal mask and high-end technological armor, with a gloomy and domineering look from head to toe. King Doom, also known as Dr. Doom. You're pretty good, you almost controlled my mind just now. Lord Doom came to him gloomily, took out his right palm covered with metal gloves, held Professor. You. Professor. You will become one of my corpses leading to the final victory. King Doom said, and began to exert force with his right hand. Rustle. Sparks circulated, and a steady voice sounded, let him go, is it fun to bully a disabled person? Oh. The eyes in the metal mask of Lord Doom kept rolling, and he suddenly laughed and threw Professor X Charles to the floor of the spaceship aside. I didn't expect you to stand up for them, do you know each other? Lord Doom turned around and looked at the red-haired young man who walked out of the Mars portal. Let's consider it acquaintance. Nian smiled lightly, but even if it's not for them, we are both competitors, can't I come here and eliminate you? Eliminate me? King Doom was stunned for a moment, then raised his head and laughed. Everyone else is avoiding me, but you are the only one who dares to come here to find me. King Doom smiled coldly. Is it because you just defeated the Avengers, so you have this kind of confidence? It turns out that you were spying on me just now, Nian suddenly realized. The other party probably used a micro-aircraft or other remote detection, so they couldn't find it just now. It's really impressive to destroy the Avengers alone, your scarlet magic seems to be very difficult. I originally thought that you would be one of the few people who competed with me for the final victory, King Doom said coldly. Since we meet you in advance now, I will get rid of you as soon as possible. Are you so confident that you can beat me? Nian asked curiously. If it were 5 minutes ago, I really couldn't guarantee that I would be able to defeat you with all kinds of strange spells. Lord Doom opened his hands, but, it's different now. As Lord Doom finished speaking, the two white spaceships parked on the land of Dojias suddenly restarted. Then the two white spaceships released their stored surging energy and converged along the floor towards Lord Doom. Zitzi. With the energy blessing of the two white spaceships, King Doom's already powerful aura continued to soar upwards, and the appearance of the metal armor was also lingering with terrifying streams of light. The overall strength is several times stronger than when the team destroyed the mutant team. Run away. Professor X hurriedly conveyed his spiritual thoughts to the young man who felt familiar. Nian didn't react to this. He looked at Lord Doom who was blessed by energy, but spread his hands, stack the buff status with me, right? The next moment. Nian turned his mind to his body, superimpose, Kryptonian superhuman abilities. Immediately, it was not triggered by the media of the Lord of the Dependence. Another surging power surged from Nian's body, blending and overlapping with the scarlet ability existing in him. In fact, it's not that it hasn't been triggered, it's just that it has been triggered a long time ago. However, Nian used a special ability to temporarily seal the temporary abilities in his body, and then extract them when needed. That too. His 10th permanent ability. Chapter 571. The 10th permanent ability. That is the ability given by Shockwave Girl Sky, named Fluctuations in Ability. Compared with the previous simple and crude permanent ability, the performance of this ability is a bit weirder. However, it can also be understood literally, even if other abilities produce fluctuations and distortions, thereby achieving a delayed effect. Ability fluctuations, combined with the temporary ability of the Familiar Lord, allow Nian to trigger the Familiar Lord through the medium of the opposite sex. And then have the temporary ability sealed in the body, which can be delayed for up to 3 days. Within these 3 days, Nian can unblock and extract that temporary ability at any time. Of course, after the seal is unsealed, the temporary ability cannot be sealed again, nor can it be cancelled midway. You can only wait until the ability expires 12 hours later. Although the ability seems a bit useless, Nian really likes this ability. This permanent ability is not so much a separate ability, but more like a reinforcement of the temporary ability of the Lord of Dependence. Previous top 9 permanent abilities. The Body of Steel, given to her by Supergirl Kara, gives her the perfect Kryptonian physical defense that is not afraid of kryptonite. The Spider Sense, given by Spider-Woman Gwen, can perfectly sense potential dangers in every detail. The Divine Immortality, bestowed by Wonder Woman Diana, provides a natural lifespan close to immortality and a strong vitality. The Eyes of Death, awakened unexpectedly in the second resurrection, can see the existence and dependence of the rules of death in the universe. The Emperor Realm, granted by Mera, the Queen of Atlantis, allows her to communicate with and control non-human animals. The Emotional Control, given by Lorna, the boss of Polaris, can sense and control the inner emotions of oneself or others. The Energy Immunity, given by Invisible Woman Susan, makes herself immune to all energy-based damage. The Fantasy Creation, given by the maid Wanda, can create items that have been seen or touched through fantasy. There is also the psychic immunity given by the housekeeper Alice, which can make oneself immune to all psychic effects. Among them, Body of Steel, energy immunity, and mind immunity are all passive defense abilities, which makes it extremely difficult for Xinyan to be injured even in normal mode. Only regular spells and abilities that exceed the level of a single universe can break through. Defend. Spider Sense and Divine Immortality are also purely passive abilities. Of course, the Immortality of Gods is still the most useful permanent ability, bar none. After all, it saved Xinyan's life once. So, my aunt is forever a god. In addition to the above passive abilities, the only permanent abilities that can be actively used are Death Eye, Emotional Control, Imperial Domain, and Fantasy Creation. These 4 permanent abilities that can be used independently have strengthened Xinyan's prediction and control of the world and things around him, but they still cannot escape the nature of auxiliary abilities. To date, as the leader of the Destiny Alliance, the Lord of the Yuan devouring space, and the second-generation Supreme Mage, Xinyan does not have a permanent ability to focus on attacking. Under normal conditions, his destructive power is almost the same as that of ordinary people. This may be the tragedy of eating soft food. Until today. The 10th permanent ability, Ability Fluctuation, that can be actively used. This is equivalent to giving Xinyan more than a dozen attack power modes that can be triggered and released at will. It's just that you need to return to the Destiny Alliance headquarters every once in a while to recharge. But the 3-day control time is far more relaxed than the previous 12-hour limit. No longer do you have to hug a girl to stack buffs before the war like before. Xinyan was really in tears, feeling like he had finally stood up. Dojia, on top of the white spaceship. The eyes of King Dum's metal mask widened in shock, looking at the red-haired young man in front of him whose breath was also soaring. On top of the peak of Wanda's scarlet magic, Kara's Kryptonian Superman power is added. A buzzing sound. The strong wind stirred and the air vibrated. Under the young man's feet, the solid floor of the white spaceship made of unknown material burst into cracks, spreading towards the location of King Dum. Xinyan entered the magical Superman mode again, with red flames surging in his eyes, the flames drawing an S on his chest. And scarlet lightning bursting out of his body. The peaked cap was directly destroyed by a ray of energy, revealing red hair that looked like exploding fire, and the terrifying energy pressure swept outward. At this time, the energy of the superimposition and fusion of scarlet magic power and superhuman power in the body is more powerful than the energy of 10 white spaceships gathered together. How is this possible? How can one person have such powerful energy? King Doom was trembling all over, and the pride he had just absorbed in absorbing the energy of the 2 white spaceships was gone. Different from the astonishment of King Doom, Professor X Charles, who was lying on the ground not far away, had surprise in his eyes. It's him. Although the hair color and aura of the young man in front were inconsistent with those encountered before. But Professor. The existence that once killed Apocalypse, the mutant god, and swept across Sentinel Base. He is more powerful. Professor. This is also a matter of course. The Red Lord mode is strong in controlling the world, while the Magic Superman mode is strong in conquest. Tremble, bastard. Professor X's spiritual words rang in Lord Doom's mind. Damn it. I don't believe it, I am the strongest. King Doom seemed to be completely irritated. His bloodshot eyes were slightly bulging, and his raised hands were filled with energy, like a waterfall of energy pouring towards the young man. This moment. Under the crazy surge of huge energy, the entire Dojia planet is as bright as day. Come. Xinyan's face was calm, as if he had fulfilled the opponent's wish, and punched straight forward. There is no fancy magic, there is just a punch from the Magic Superman. Bang! Crimson and White only fought for less than half a second. The superhuman force field and the scarlet magic power intertwined and appeared. The fist moved forward and easily tore through the energy waterfall. It turned into a scarlet lightning and struck Doom. The armor attached to the energy on the body shattered in response. Another place on Dojia planet. Mr. Fantastic turned around in shock, only to hear a familiar scream coming from a distance, and then the fighting world couldn't stop shaking. On top of the first white spaceship, Xinyan, who was surrounded by powerful scarlet fire, stood alone on the floor and calmly retracted his fist. Next to him, Professor X, Charles, stared blankly ahead. Lord Doom disappeared. The floor remains in place. Only a hole with a radius of 3 meters was left, which penetrated the white spaceship, broke through the crust and core of the Dojia planet and directly broke out from the other end of the Dojia. Chapter 572. The King of Doom is gone. Or, he was blasted into ashes by the punch just now, or he flew out from the other side of the pierced fighting world. Mr. Nian. Professor X Charles looked at the only red-haired young man standing on the field, and sighed. Sure enough, no matter which time and space world he was in, this one still had extremely terrifying dominance. Buzz. Although the battle here has ended, the vibration of the fighting world has not eased, but has become more and more intense. Over there. Magic Superman Nian looked at one side of the fighting world, as if he sensed something, and his eyes suddenly swept towards the mutants on the spaceship. The next moment, Professor X Charles only felt that the surrounding space objects were blurred, and soon switched to the scene inside the spaceship, as if he and other seriously injured mutants were collectively transferred to the second intact white spaceship. Mr. Nian, this is... Professor X Charles looked blankly at the magic Superman Nian who appeared in a teleportation. This place will soon be destroyed, I will take you away from here. Magic Superman Nian left this sentence, took a step forward, and his figure disappeared in the spaceship cabin. The next moment, Nian appeared in the air outside the white spaceship. Magic Superman Nian stopped at an altitude of 50 meters, drew a circle with his hands downward, and a huge Mars portal emerged, covering the second white spaceship downward. The white spaceship was completely swallowed by the Mars portal and disappeared. When it reappeared, it was quietly floating in the outer space tens of kilometers away from the Dogia. The X-Men from the peaceful mutant time and space also have Phoenix's mentor and friend. Nian felt that he would still help if he could. Almost the next moment when Magic Superman Nian sent the spaceship where the mutant survivors were away from the Dogia. Boom! Under the eyes of the flying Magic Superman Nian, the small planetary fighting world was violently shaken, and shocking cracks were all over the surface, and then a lot of gravel and dust gathered in one place. Whoosh! This is an extremely terrifying scene. The fighting world, which still has a large number of superheroes and supervillains, seems to be torn and swallowed by a black hole. No, that is not a black hole. With supervision and perspective eyes, Nian's eyes are flaming with flames, and he can clearly see where the gravel and dust of the fighting world gather. There is a strong armored giant that is 100 meters tall. For a while, the entire fighting world planet screamed continuously, fearing that they would be swallowed alive with the fighting world, and the flying superheroes and supervillains fled to the outside of space. For example, Nian saw it. Thor, the god of thunder, held Thor's hammer in one hand, and pulled Iron Man and Spider-Man in the other hand, fleeing to the universe outside the fighting world. Compared to the annihilation of the Avengers and the mutant team, this is the real indiscriminate annihilation. It is not quite accurate to describe it as an annihilation, it should be a clearing. The entire competitive planet was swallowed up. I destroyed you, what does it have to do with you? Less than 10 seconds. The pieced-together Dogia planet was directly swallowed up. And the 100-meter giant suspended in the universe continued to shrink and return to its original body of nearly 3 meters tall. It was the Devourer who challenged the Transcendence before. The Devourer of Planets patted his belly and burped, muttering to himself with lingering feelings, this planet is really delicious, condensing the essence of the Milky Way. After digesting the Dogia, Devourer felt that his strength not only recovered, but also unexpectedly broke through to a new level. Faintly, it is about to break through the barrier of the so-called single universe and move towards diversity. Transcendence, now that I have eliminated everyone, it's time to fulfill one of my wishes, right? Tuanxing said loudly in the empty universe, I want to devour all the planets in tens of millions of universes. What are you looking at? There is obviously one person who has not been eliminated by you. What did you say? Tuanxing looked back in shock and saw a human youth with red energy all over his body in the universe not far behind him. Is it you? Then come on. Tuanxing smiled coldly, and he immediately flew over like a meteorite, blasting out an armored fist the size of a football. Magic Superman Nian did not hesitate at all, and the scarlet lightning on his body burst out, and he also swung his right fist in the same way. When the fists that were 3 or 4 times the size of each other touched each other in the universe. Except for the white light of the Transcendence, all other lights dimmed and extinguished. Bang! With Magic Superman Nian and Planet Devourer as the center, it was like Mars and Earth were colliding with each other, and the powerful energy swept out for countless kilometers, shaking the stars in the distance to lose their light. And this was just the beginning of the battle. Then, accompanied by a roar. Star Devourer was completely and seriously involved in this battle. And Magic Superman Nian also used all his strength. As the final victory in the battle world, the two fought together with close-range physical combat and long-range energy bombardment. The original universe of the battle world that had long been swallowed and wiped out was the battlefield in the void. Quietly floating on the white spaceship between the universes. Many superheroes and supervillains fled here, including the Fantastic Three and the Avengers. At this time, everyone stood by the window of the spaceship, looking at the final duel in the distant universe with pale and horrified faces. The 3-meter-tall alien figure and the figure of the human youth were almost doubled. I don't know how many times they fought in 1 second. Each horizontal bombardment of the body and energy was enough to annihilate a small planet. It didn't look like two cosmic creatures fighting each other, but more like a black hole and a red sun fighting again and again. Even a god like Thor would be terrified. Mr. Nian, you must win. Professor X Charles sat in the wheelchair again, watching the battle in the universe ahead with worry. Boom. 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 Energy that was so strong that it overflowed collided with each other, and fists hit each other's bodies respectively. The moment they flew backwards, they fought forward again. Fighting to the white tropics. Nian rarely encountered an opponent like today that he couldn't defeat in a short time even in the magic Superman mode. At this time, the helmet of the planet devourer was cracked, and he looked a little embarrassed. He was extremely shocked. The other party was much stronger than those so-called high gods. Ha ha ha, I didn't expect that there are beings as strong as you in other universes. If I hadn't just swallowed the Dogia, I might really lose to you. Let's use this blow to decide the winner. As soon as the voice fell, the momentum of the planet devourer suddenly soared to a level, and his fist slammed forward with the colorful light of the previous Dogia. It's time to end it. Nian did not dodge, but instead stepped forward, turned into a scarlet lightning, and whispered, Alice, the power of vision. Scarlet, Superman, vision. A long-lost 3-in-1. The speed of the magic Superman Nian suddenly soared, and between the intertwined scarlet lightning, there was a faint silver light that cut through time and space. Boom. The next moment, the tall body of the planet devourer flew backwards. This time, there was a deep dent in his chest, his right arm was broken, and the red armor on his upper body was completely shattered. Chapter 573. Just as Galactus said, one strike decides the outcome. The energy curtain that surged like a waterfall was broken by a red punch. The young man with red flames all over his body and scarlet lightning in his eyes stopped above the dark universe. And the armored strong man with a body 2 or 3 times bigger than him flew backwards. Galactus actually lost. Is that really a human? Are you sure it's not a god from another time and space? In the white spaceship, the Avengers and the Fantastic Three were stunned when they saw this ending. Although they were reluctant to admit it, they knew how strong Galactus was. Only monsters among monsters can defeat that legendary alien monster alone, right? Mr. Nian. Professor X, Charles, who was in a wheelchair at the side, grasped the armrests with both hands and showed surprise in his eyes. Ha! Nian slowly spit out the red fire that was like real, and his strong and upright chest burned with an S pattern. He watched the unconscious Galactus fly away from the original space area of the Dogia. It can be said that Galactus did not lose unfairly. The superposition and fusion of the 3 different top-level abilities of Scarlet Magic, Krypton Superman, and Vibranium Vision has almost made him stand at the peak of all modes so far. The current Vision Super Red mode, purely in terms of combat power, is stronger than the Apocalypse Super Red mode that finally defeated Darkseid's projection on Apocalypse. This is also the limit of Nian's own ability to stack top-level abilities. However, Nian has enough confidence that this mode can be regarded as invincible under the multidimensional level. As long as the Devourer of Planets has not reached the multidimensional level, even if it comes 100 times, the opponent will be defeated. At the same time, in the cosmic area of the original site of the Dogia, on the other side, a tall man with gray rags hanging on his body, with his face hanging down, quietly floated in the universe. The metal mask on his face has fallen off, revealing half of his bloody and terrifying face after being disfigured. The technological armor on his body is also full of cracks, and there is no intact part of his body. Like a dead body, it was impossible to tell that he was once the king of a country and the strongest villain on Marvel Earth. Buzz. From the side of the universe that tore the space-time of the Marvel Universe, a white light fell on the body of Dr. Doom. Is he dead? In that white beam, there was a unique consciousness that transcended everything talking to itself. In that case, the one who won in the end is really him. Is this also considered to be taking care of him, life? The words were not finished. Suddenly, the seemingly dead Doom suddenly raised his hands wearing broken metal gloves and grabbed a beam of white light in front of him as an energy entity. I've been waiting for this moment. Doom raised his bloody face and smiled grimly, grasping the white beam with both hands tightly, and pouring the transcendent energy from the outside universe into his scarred body. Buzz. In an instant, a light as bright as day shone in the universe, completely covering and drowning the body of Dr. Doom. What happened again? More than a dozen kilometers away, the people on the white spaceship were in doubt and could hardly look directly at the dazzling and glaring light. The Transcendent, that guy. Vision Super Red Mode Nian had just defeated Galactus, and when he noticed something strange on the other side, he turned into a scarlet lightning and rushed towards the light source, but was quickly repelled by the internal energy. To be able to repel him now, there is no doubt that it is the level of stepping beyond the single universe and entering the multiverse. And for creatures born in a single universe, it is impossible to enter the multiverse level. This is why Odin asked Nian to only be wary of enemies with the strength of the single universe. This is a miracle in the multiverse, and only when the Transcendent intervenes will a miracle happen. The white light that illuminates most of the universe recedes like a tide, and finally shapes into a white sacred armor. A handsome face emerged from the white light, followed by a tall body covered by armor with its own energy light. The armored man opened his eyes with white energy light, and a heart-pounding wave swept out, spreading endlessly in the vast universe, and the stars and suns of countless galaxies were slightly shaken. Is this part of the ability of the Transcendent? It's too wonderful. Dr. Doom, who was intertwined with the strong light of day, looked down at his hands and muttered excitedly. The figure of King Doom flashed and disappeared from the universe, and the next moment he appeared inside the white spaceship. Inner cabin of the spaceship. Seeing the white light emerge, the Avengers and the Fantastic Three were all shocked. Mr. Fantastic opened his eyes wide in astonishment. You are, Doom. Read, I feel that I am omnipotent and omniscient now, and I am above this universe. Dr. Doom's mouth curled up with joy, and he spread his hands. The mysteries of a universe that were difficult to study in the past, the truths of a universe that were incomprehensible, all directly appeared in my mind. I feel that I can wipe you out with just one thumb. Dr. Doom pointed his finger forward, and a white light filled with destruction and vitality shone. The two members on the left and right sides of Mr. Fantastic, the Human Torch and the Thing, stagnated, and the next moment, they turned into ashes and dissipated in the spacecraft. No, no. Mr. Fantastic knelt on his knees, his hands on the ground, looking at his teammates who were wiped into ashes by a finger in disbelief. The Avengers also took a breath and felt a chill on their backs. Facing Doom, who was in an incredible situation, they had no intention of fighting. Do you know why I didn't kill you? Read, this face of mine was destroyed by you before, so I can only live under the mask from now on. Dr. Doom touched his handsome face that had returned to its original appearance and smiled coldly. I want you to live and witness the moment I ascended to the real throne of God. From now on, I am the God, God Doom. With a white light of destruction in his eyes, God Doom flashed and disappeared into the cabin of the spacecraft. It's over, no one can stop him now, Thor smiled bitterly. Mr. Nian. Professor X Charles held the armrest tightly. Even though he was extremely confident in Nian, he didn't have the confidence at all now. After all, Doom was too strong at the moment, more than 10 times stronger than before. White light flashed across the universe. God Lord Doom appeared behind Nian, raised his right palm forward, and brought down the infinite pressure of white light. Nian looked back very quickly, and two parallel scarlet lightnings burst out of his eyes, drawing the trajectory of the letter Z. The scarlet lightning actually tore a corner of the white light slightly. Oh. That's your energy move that reaches the multidimensional level, right? No wonder, I didn't lose unfairly before. God Lord Doom's eyes flashed with surprise, but he still looked very relaxed. Stop talking nonsense, let's fight. Vision Super Red Nian had no reason to be afraid of fighting, clenched his fists and took the initiative to rush over. Chapter 574. After the shocking change, a new round of battle began in the vast universe. Vision Super Red Nian was as fast as lightning. He waved his right fist with all his strength. Under the intertwining effect of force, energy and magic, he blasted it in front of the Divine Lord Doom. Divine Lord Doom raised a palm at random, took the red fist that had just defeated Galactus not long ago, and stood motionless in the universe. The white light swept from the inside to the outside, blocking all the force field, power, energy, and magic power carried in the fist. Vision Super Red Nian failed to hit a single blow, and his figure flashed and disappeared in front of Doom. The next moment, he came behind him and once again punched with all his strength, and Omega Effect rays burst out from his eyes again. Powerful fists and Omega rays fell. The white light in the eyes of God King Doom flashed, and the white light was like thunder flowing and erupting from his own armor, colliding with the scarlet Omega rays, and knocking Nian away. The super red Nian of vision moved, and the surrounding space shattered like a mirror, and dozens of identical red figures surrounded the Divine Lord Doom. Divine Lord Doom stretched out his hands, and the white light burst out like a sharp blade, tearing apart more than a dozen red figures together with the universe area almost at the same time. Among them, a red figure ignored the fragmentation of the white energy light, barged in front of Divine Lord Doom, and slapped Divine Lord Doom directly on the chest. Bang! A phantom spirit body was slapped out from the body of God Lord Doom under this slap. Awesome, he actually ignored my energy attacks and my energy defense armor. The spirit body of Divine Lord Doom sighed with emotion, but remained calm. Vision Super Red Nian punched out without hesitation, hitting the opponent's body in the face, but the opponent turned his head to avoid it in the next moment. But at the moment when the spirit body was shot out, the spirit body of God Lord Doom returned again. I'm no longer the same as before. Divine Lord Doom smiled coldly and punched Nian away. Nian flew dozens of kilometers upside down in an instant, passing by the space adjacent to the white spacecraft. Come again. At a disadvantage, Nian continued to rush back as if he was really in a fighting state. There is no reason to retreat in Vision Super Red mode. A waste of time. Divine Lord Doom shook his head and also punched. Punch to punch. White Ray versus Red Ray. A red sun was directly torn apart by white strong light, scattered into countless sparks and extinguished in the universe. Come again. Nian flew out, but in the next moment, he continued to return to attack. In just 1 second, they fought hundreds of times. The speed of the two has already exceeded the top speed that Yin can achieve. Fighting thousands of times. God Lord Doom stood in the same position in the universe, and time again repelled Nian who flashed or flew forward. No matter how many times he was repulsed, Nian continued to return without getting discouraged. Even if it is a body of steel plus the physical defense of vibranium. The fists of both his hands were still broken and wounded, and blood stained the ends of the fists, causing the scarlet flames to cling to and burn. However, Nian had no intention of giving up. Instead, he became more and more courageous as he fought. Looking at the young man rushing forward for the 100th time, Divine Lord Doom was moved. This guy is so scary. Divine Lord Doom sighed sincerely. The surface defense that can ignore the bombardment of multiple energies is a body stronger than the hardest metal in the universe. All kinds of strange spells, amazing and terrifying powers. It's a pity that you only touch the realm of diversity with that one move, and the rest are at the peak of the bottleneck under diversity. Divine Lord Doom couldn't help but feel sorry for Nian. If he hadn't absorbed part of the Transcendence energy and reached the current level, Doom felt that he would never be able to defeat the opponent in this life. It's time to finish. The figure of Divine Lord Doom flashed, and the white light moved forward to freeze the space in the universe, making Nian reveal his figure. Goodbye. Divine Lord Doom pushed his palm, suppressing it with the transcendent law that overcame the universe, pushing Nian to the end. In just an instant, the figure of Nian, who flew upside down, flickered and completely disappeared from this cosmic area. The time and space of the Marvel Universe, the edge of the end of the universe. Sakaar. There are countless space wormholes in the sky here that are connected to the universe, and the surface of the planet is filled with garbage from all over the universe. This is where everything in the universe is lost. At this time, the large arena of Saka Star. The auditorium was filled with aliens from all over the universe, cheering enthusiastically and watching the two powerful aliens fighting fiercely. But at this moment, a human-shaped red lightning struck from the sky above the dome of the open-air arena and hit the center of the arena. The bustling large arena suddenly fell silent. The two powerful aliens who were fighting were also stunned. They looked directly at the crater made by lightning in the arena, and the figure of a human youth emerged from it. Sure enough, it still doesn't work. The red-haired young man exhaled, and the S-shaped flame totem on his chest dimmed a little. Ignoring the two powerful aliens next to him and the tens of thousands of cosmic aliens around him, Nian in Vision Super Red mode fell into thinking. Although Doom stole part of the energy of the Transcendent, he still entered the multidimensional realm. Reaching that level is equivalent to being above the universe. The power and energy are not something that the single universe level can contend with. The gap between the single and multidimensional levels is far greater than the gap between humans and gods. Since that's the case, there's nothing we can do. Nian was not depressed, but calmly closed his eyes. The two alien warriors who participated in the fight next to him trembled. They vaguely sensed from the red-haired young man the terrifying power that made the racial genes tremble. I can only try, the 10th permanent ability. Nian muttered to himself. The 10th permanent ability, ability fluctuation. The ability characteristic is to temporarily seal the temporary ability triggered by the medium in the body, and then delay the triggering. In addition, this ability has another characteristic performance. Stability. Ability fluctuation can make the superposition and fusion of Nian's multiple temporary abilities more stable. This is also the 3-in-1 mode that Nian was able to stack to the current top-end ability version without burden before. Last time on Apocalypse, stacking to this 3-in-1 mode almost made Nian lose control and die. Under the stable characteristics of the 10th permanent ability, can one more ability be added in the top 3-in-1 mode without losing control and crashing? Nian did not dare to guarantee it. But now, it is obviously time to give it a try. Come on, Ant. Nian took a deep breath and whispered to himself, Divine Power. On the basis of Scarlet Magic, Krypton Superman, and Vibranium Vision. Then stack the 4th top single ability, Wonder Woman's Divine Power. Chapter 575. Marvel Universe Time and Space, Sakaar Planet, Large Arena. Who is that person? Fall from the sky. Looks like a human being. How is it possible that humans have such a terrifying aura? The tens of thousands of alien spectators in the auditorium of the arena looked at the young man in the center of the arena in bewilderment, which made the two gladiators dare not move. On the highest platform in the auditorium, Gao Tianzuan, the master of Sokka Star, was also looking at the field in astonishment. As one of the oldest intelligent beings in the universe, Gao Tianzuan has knowledge and eyesight that cannot be matched by any living creature. Because of this, he feels even more incredible. That red-haired young man. Gao Tianzuan can clearly feel the fatal threat from the opponent that is enough to kill him completely. Can't go wrong. Gao Tianzuan is very sure that the human youth who suddenly appeared in the arena has the terrifying strength that he had when he unified the 9 realms and the god King Odin was at his peak. That will also be the strongest state that the creatures in this universe can reach. Gao Tianzuan felt a sense of fear that he had not seen for a long time, and immediately ordered to go down and not allow the guards to come on stage to disturb the other party. This kind of existence standing at the pinnacle of the starry sky, if it wants to destroy Sakaar, it can only take one thought. What does he want to do? Gao Tianzuan felt even more surprised when he saw the red-haired young man standing motionless in the arena and suddenly closing his eyes. The next moment, raging scarlet flames rose from the body of the red-haired young man, and the S-shaped fire on his chest lingered like a swimming dragon. A soul-shaking power continued to surge, and scarlet lightning shot out to all directions in the arena. The two strongest gladiators who were still on the field collapsed to the ground with their legs weak, and then rolled and crawled out of the arena. Tens of thousands of alien spectators in the arena's auditorium slumped on chairs or on the ground, daring not to move. Boom! The chaotic clouds in the sky above the open-air arena rotated into the eye of the wind, and streaks of crimson thunder fell down on the arena. Buzz! A powerful force field enveloped the entire large arena, causing the laws of physics to become disordered, and a lot of gravel and dust floated upwards without gravity. Sure enough, the strength is exactly the same as that of Peak Odin, and even more oppressive. Gao Tianzuan was a little out of breath and stared at the other person with wide eyes. No one has reached this level since the old age of God King Odin. Wrong! Gao Tianzuan seemed to suddenly sense something, and his graffiti-covered face revealed an expression of disbelief. The energy and pressure on the other party have not stagnated, and are still growing. It has obviously reached the pinnacle of the starry sky in the universe, but it seems to be moving forward infinitely without any bottleneck. This is impossible. No one can enter that realm, not even Odin, who was the destined son of this universe, failed. Gao Tianzuan's slightly bulging eyes were full of bloodshot eyes. He couldn't help but stand up from the chair. His pupils reflected the young man enveloped in energy. Since the 4th temporary ability, the power of the gods, was triggered and continued to be forcibly superimposed on the super red mode of vision, Nian lost control of his current body. No matter how much control and adjustment you try, it is difficult to bring the body back to balance. The superposition and fusion of the 4 top abilities is still an inevitable trend towards failure. This may be the reason why it is difficult for countless multiverses to have a multi-level existence for hundreds of millions of years. All the creatures in the single universe are unable to take a step beyond multiplicity, as if they are restricted by a barrier. No way. Nian sighed secretly. But at this moment, a strange wave emerged from deep inside the body, and began to bring the 4 different chaotic energies together again. That's when the stable nature of the 10th permanent ability comes into play. Just relying on the stability of ability fluctuations is far from enough to return the energy in the body to balance. I have no choice but to trust you once. Nian murmured to himself, then turned his attention to a place in his body. Gwen, lend me your power. Spider Physique. A long time ago, the Spider Physique had its own stable auxiliary characteristics, which played a stable role when stacking multiple top-level abilities in the early stages of the year. After a golden stream of light emerged from Nian's body, a green shadow with a spider pattern appeared behind him. At the same time, deep inside the body, The moment the fifth green energy of different natures emerged, it began to resemble a spider web, sticking to the other four powerful energies, and forcibly pulling them together. The trend of chaos and collapse finally began to stabilize. The five abilities formed a five-pointed star, from which colored light condensed. At this moment, Scarlet Magic, Kryptonian Superman, Vibranium Vision, Divine Power, and Spider Physique. Representing magic, new gods, technology, old gods, and mutation respectively, the five major abilities in different fields are superimposed and integrated into one. Bang! The overflowing energy alone was enough to destroy the entire large arena and even Sakaar, but it was quickly relieved by the glassy space barrier. The energy fluctuations that were originally so powerful that they caused natural phenomena in the sky continued to fade away until they completely subsided in the arena. Nian's hair turned back to its normal original black color, and there was just a faint layer of multicolored light flowing on the surface of his body. He slowly opened his eyes were bright and blazing, and it seemed as if countless brilliant universes were cyclically shattering inside him. The young man was wearing a silver battle suit made of vibranium, with an S-shaped golden flame burning on his chest. A green spider mark on his shoulder, a dark red cloak wrapped in scarlet flames, and a crown made of colorful energy hanging on his head. The sky above the open-air arena returned to normal, and the strong wind inside the arena calmed down. The young man's originally sharp and terrifying aura tended to be calm, and even made people feel inexplicably kind and gentle. Tens of thousands of alien spectators breathed a sigh of relief. Only Gao Tianzuan, the Lord of Sokka, was trembling all over, staring at the human youth with his eyes wide open. This feeling, he succeeded. He took that step successfully and entered the supreme realm where even legends have not been passed down. Multiple realms. This feeling is indeed very wonderful. In the 5-in-1 mode, Nian's eyes were full of colors, and he felt that he could see and understand all the energy and laws of the universe at once. It was like observing this single universe from a bird's eye view. Transcendence and control. Nian also had a feeling that from the moment he entered the multiverse level, there should not be a second parallel existence like him in the countless multiverses and time and space. In the entire multiverse, he is the only one. Chapter 576. Nian finally understood why even the extraordinary combat power of Vision Super Red Mode could not defeat the previous Divine Lord Doom. No matter whether God King Doom steals it or through some method, the multi-level is the multi-level. The gap between the multiverse and the single universe is like a chasm. Nian finally understood why the original bodies of Darkseid and Dormammu could not enter the single universe where he was. The only existence of diversity is too powerful. Even if it just breaks in, the overflowing energy is enough to destroy the single universe. Therefore, the single universe has its own laws and mechanisms, which will resist the entry of external multiple levels. Multiple existences can only gradually invade the single universe by projecting clones and spreading beliefs. Of course, Doom and Nian are exceptions. Both of them are located in the current single universe. By stealing energy and amplifying abilities, they have transformed into multiple levels in the single universe. Until now. Only then did Nian understand how powerful and special the existence of multiple levels was. They are transcendent above all single universes. They have no lifespan or self-limitation. They have become the only true existence in the multidimensional world. They can be regarded as a dimensional world in themselves. Energy and laws can be provided to the multidimensional worlds. In theory, there is almost no might be killed again. Nian in the 5-in-1 mode looked down at his hands. He had the illusion that he could punch through the current universe with one punch. Maybe this is not an illusion. Ling gently sent out his right fist, and with a bang, it was like punching through a transparent glass. A space hole with a radius of 10 meters appeared in front of him, and everything on the edge of the hole was distorted and annihilated. So that's it, Nian smiled, recalling some things from the past. During the battle against Steppenwolf on Earth. When he finally destroyed the Mother Box, he accidentally superimposed the ability of Apocalypse Wisdom in the 3-in-1 Super God mode. At that time, Nian also had a similar feeling, that is, a sense of déjà vu that killed everything with one punch. It seems now. At that time, the Apocalypse Super God model had already half-stepped into the multiverse level. However, it was not until today that Nian completely stepped forward, and this was under the condition of perfect control of his physical condition. Excuse me, please continue. Nian glanced outside, nodded towards the two gladiators on the edge of the arena, and stepped into the space cave. Next to the original site of Dojia, inside the white spaceship. Now, you can either regard me as the God Lord and be loyal to me, or you can continue fighting with me, how about that? God Lord Doom returned to the cabin of the spaceship, with a white light of destruction bursting out of his eyes, facing the people who had survived from the world of fighting. Both superheroes and supervillains were silent at this time. Fight with the current God Lord Doom? That is no different than sending yourself to death. Therefore, it seems that they have a choice, but in fact they have no choice at all. Mr. Nian, have you really lost, Professor? You want me to be loyal to you? Doom, are you dreaming? Mr. Fantastic looked at Lord Doom coldly. Reed, I actually quite admire you, it's a pity that we have to be on the opposite side forever. Divine Lord Doom smiled slightly, stretched out his finger and moved forward a little. With a bolt of thorny white lightning, Mr. Fantastic's rubberized body was annihilated into ashes without any resistance. Hateful. Everyone in the Avengers was furious, but they didn't dare to take action. They could only watch Reed die. Divine Lord Doom looked at the extremely beautiful woman in the cabin, smiled and said, "Charming witch, you can be my future queen of the kingdom of God." The enchantress looked at the window of the spacecraft absent-mindedly, as if she didn't hear his words. The universe and time where you mutants are located will also be included in the territory of my kingdom of God in the future. Divine Lord Doom continued to look at Professor. He will become the supreme divine king of diversity, and the territory of the divine kingdom encompasses countless universes and time-spaces. Divine Lord Doom was very excited, but at this moment, a hand patted his shoulder from behind without any warning. Divine Lord Doom's body immediately stiffened, and countless inner thoughts were interrupted. How did the other party do it? He is now all-knowing and all-powerful, who else can come close to him quietly? In the main hall of the spaceship, the surviving Avengers, Enchantress, Professor. It's him, the charming witch's beautiful eyes lit up. Mr. Nian. Professor X was so excited that he almost sat up from his chair. What? Divine Lord Doom turned around in disbelief. It was obvious that the person behind him was not the human youth just now, but his appearance and aura had changed. This subtle sense of danger. This is impossible, you have also entered this field. Divine Lord Doom couldn't believe it, nor could he understand how the other party did it. You can enter, why can't I? Nian shrugged and asked casually. It's the Transcendent, he lent his power to you. God Lord Doom could only think of this. My power is indeed borrowed, but I am not a so-called Transcendent. Nian smiled knowingly, and several beautiful and graceful figures appeared in his mind. I was able to successfully enter the current state, not only because of the abilities they provided, but also because of the emotional connection that was integrated into my body and mind. You can actually do it, I don't believe it. Doom's eyes were filled with anger and jealousy, and the technological armor with multiple energies on his body was also shining brightly. A single ray of energy that overflowed was enough to destroy the spacecraft. Nian's hand was on him again, and the next moment, the two disappeared from their original place and appeared in the empty universe after the Milky Way was destroyed. God Lord Doom didn't care, used all his energy, turned into a daylight that tore everything apart, and roared towards Nian. The universe was torn apart at this moment. I have never been fighting alone. 5-in-1 mode. Nian had a faint smile on his lips, and colorful light flowed in his eyes. He also punched out a punch with lingering fusion energy with all his strength. However, this time the colorful fist easily penetrated the daylight curtain that even the Omega effect could not penetrate before. Bang! Colorful torrents, white light spread. The terrifying surging energy surged in the vast universe. If the Milky Way was still there, this energy would destroy it again. The white spaceships were flying to the farther universe under the aftermath of countless light years. Soon, the light dissipated. In the infinitely empty universe, there was only a young man wearing a colorful crown and a scarlet cloak, holding half of the body of the God Lord Doom in his hand. We are at the same level, how can you be so strong? The handsome face of the God Lord Doom was pale, and the white light on his body was dim and almost extinguished. He asked with great difficulty. 5-in-1 mode. Nian just replied simply. There are gaps among diversity. Chapter 577. Doom entered the multidimensional world by stealing transcendent energy, but he did not have complete control over it. He was the lowest level of multidimensional power. As for the top version of the 5-in-1 mode, Nian doesn't know how strong it is. Anyway, he can fight God Lord Doom casually. There is also a gap in the multi-level level. With only half of his body left, Divine Lord Doom looked at Nian blankly, and then laughed a little maniacally. Even if you can defeat me, you can't really kill me. Reaching the multidimensional level, it is almost impossible to kill, and their bodies are transcendent from the single universe. Even if it is killed, the soul can be reborn in other universes. I don't have to kill you either. Nian, who was in the 5-in-1 mode, shook his head, threw his right hand upwards hard, and threw the God Lord Doom he was carrying towards the far end of the universe that was torn apart by white light. No. You can't do this. The words are not finished yet. Half of the body of God Lord Doom was enveloped in white light, and then, strands of white energy were peeled out of his body. Life, strength, energy, rules, all are being exponentially weakened and lost. No, no. Doom kept struggling to escape from that area, and the powerful aura on his body continued to plummet, quickly falling to the original level of combat power, and even weakening to an even lower level. White light flashes. Half of Doom's body covered in broken armor was transported to the white spaceship. His face was ashen. And his handsome face had returned to the blood color after his disfigurement. His eyes were blankly looking at the Avengers and mutants who were constantly surrounding them. A moment ago, he was the overlord of the universe at a multi-level level, and now he has become a disabled person who is weaker than anyone else on the field. No matter how high you climb to the top, your fall will be miserable. In a black and empty universe. Nian, a multi-level man with colorful light flowing on his body, is here. The white light shines in this direction, and the little fat man who appeared in the mirror space before is transformed from it. That is the transcendent. To be more precise, it is the appearance of the transcendent in Nian's mind. After all, in Nian's opinion, the other party's intention to engage in such a big battle, only to end up with a big fight, is just a child's mentality. The mentally retarded kind. Wonderful, very wonderful. The little fat man clapped his hands and exclaimed in admiration, "I didn't expect you to make it this far." Come less. Nian glanced at him expressionlessly, "Did you do it on purpose just now?" It's a bit too fake for a being who is above diversity to be absorbed and seized energy by a villain who has not even touched the threshold of diversity. Ahem, that's not the point. The Transcendent smiled and said, "Now, you have become the ultimate winner of the fighting world, tell me, what wish do you want to make?" He blinked, "By the way, I remember, you said you were looking for someone before, right? We'll talk later." Nian raised his colorful eyes and looked at the empty universe with nothing, as if he was looking beyond the universe. "Let me settle the accounts with the others first." Oh. The Transcendent crossed his legs in the universe and sat on the void of space, with an expression on his face like he was watching a show. Boom. The space barrier of Marvel's single universe was torn open, and a young figure broke into the multidimensional cracks of chaos. The energy of a black mist that had been squatting outside immediately became turbulent. Several strange purple-black eyes opened from it, and the black mist that could swallow everything surged crazily towards the young man. Nian Prince, how dare you come out of there? I will never let you escape this time. I will drag you into my dark dimension and make you my most loyal slave. You will conquer other universes for me forever. Dormammu's true form laughed ferociously. Facing the black mist energy sweeping in from all directions, Nian did not run away this time. He stopped steadily in the multidimensional cracks of the chaotic space, and the dark red cloak he wore moved huntingly. Dormammu, I've wanted to punch you in the body for a long time. Nian whispered to himself, his 5 fingers closed into a fist. While he clenched his right hand into a fist, the S-shaped golden flame on his chest, the green spider pattern on his shoulder, the moonlight glory crown on his head, and the colorful vibranium armor attached to his body, integrated power and energy. On top of the fist. Wait, this feeling is, how is it possible? You have also entered this field. Dormammu seemed to sense something, and the black mist energy immediately fled at high speed. I only realized it now, it's too late. The multidimensional Nian in the 5-in-1 mode has already punched out his right fist. And a multicolored light beam followed the black mist and disappeared in the gap between the multidimensional elements, and they all traveled through the space and disappeared at the end of the vast multidimensional world. At the same time, in a dark dimension with no concept of space or time, a colorful beam of light that resembled the impact of a fist wave burst out from nowhere. And finally blasted into this place forcefully. Suddenly, large areas of darkness and dark energy collapsed and were annihilated. Nian Prince. The dark dimension resounded with Dormammu's angry roar, but this time, its words revealed a fear that was not seen before. The moment the opponent reached the multidimensional level, Dormammu knew that it would never be possible to retaliate against the opponent in the future. That human youth is already on par with it, or even surpasses it. Incredible. Even Dormammu found it unbelievable. It was indirectly witnessing that the other party had grown from the weakest human being to a multidimensional one in just over 20 years. That's so diverse. The only special existence that transcends all multiverses. Except for the ancient multiverse of life that was born with the multiverse. It took hundreds of millions of years for countless single universes of time and space to give birth to a multidimensional existence. Even Dormammu was lucky enough to merge with the dark dimension at the right time and place, so he entered that realm, but because of this he could not be separated from the dark dimension. He ran really fast. Nian, who was in the 5-in-1 mode and had a multi-level, withdrew his colorful gaze and retracted his right fist. What made him feel regretful was that the multidimensional enemy who attacked him with Omega did not appear before. Colorful light flashed. Nian disappeared into the cracks of diversity. Marvel Universe time and space. The white light curtain tearing apart the universe falls downwards, planets emerge from it, star belts disappear from it, and the previously destroyed galaxy is reshaped and restored. The voice of the Transcendent sounded in everyone's mind in the white spaceship cabin. I will resurrect those who died before, your universe has also returned to its original state, I will send you back now. Goodbye, Mr. Nian. Professor X heard this and whispered to himself. A dazzling mysterious white light flashed, and everything including the Avengers, X-Men mutants, and the white spaceship disappeared. Chapter 578. The two single universes of Marvel and mutants have returned to their original state. It's as if everything before was unreal, something that had never happened, and everything was just a dream of heroes and villains. And this, to the Transcendent, is just a game. Inside a brand new white spaceship floating among the universe. The Transcendent sat alone in a chair and poured himself a cup of coffee. Do you think this is interesting? Colorful light flashed, and multi-level Nian appeared out of thin air in the white spaceship. Of course it's interesting. The Transcendent showed a pure smile. I want to understand the meaning of life from it. Then have you realized it? Nian asked. The Transcendent self-channel, not yet, however, one day, I will realize it. After all, I am a Transcendent, and nothing can stop me. But have you ever thought that what you observe in this way is only the meaning of other people's lives? Nian looked at the other person and said bluntly. What you want to really find should be the meaning of your own existence, Bar. The Transcendent was silent. Nian suddenly felt that the existence of the Transcendent represented an inexplicable sadness. Perhaps since his birth, he has been truly omniscient and omnipotent, able to achieve anything at will, even resurrecting others with a single thought. But precisely because of this, he lost the meaning of his own existence. The Transcendent transcends everything and loses everything. What you said was similar to someone who said it before, the Transcendent said suddenly. So, I have always been curious about who is the person who can attract the special attention of a being like her. So, you came here specifically to see me? Nian frowned. Could it be that the person who attacked me with Omega effect rays before and caused me to break into the current universe was? Ah, none of that matters anymore. The Transcendent smiled happily. The important thing is, meeting you this time makes me understand why she values you. Nian still wanted to say something. The Transcendent waved his hand and said, don't try to trick me, I won't reveal her information. Even at your current level, if she doesn't want to see you, you won't be able to see her even if she searches through the entire multidimensional world, to her. Nian shrugged, raised his dark red magic floating cloak, and sat down on the chair opposite the Transcendent. I think so, I can only let her come to see me. Nian, you are so interesting. Are you so confident that you dare to let her come to see you? Are you really not afraid of death? To be honest, I quite want to die. Nian smiled lightly. The two of them were talking in riddles, laughing as they talked. You are so interesting, I wish I could have known you earlier. The Transcendent spoke sincerely and changed the subject. Tell me, what wish do you want me to fulfill? Even if I let you enter the true multidimensional level and let you stand in front of the endless family, I can satisfy it. You. No need, Nian shook his head and said. You just need to achieve what I said before. That's why you travel through diversity, right? The Transcendent pondered for a moment and said, in that case, then as you wish. Somewhere in space and time, 1,700 years. Mount Everest, the top of a mountain that has never been climbed by outsiders, under severe storms. A young bald woman and a little girl of only 4 or 5 years old are located here. You said you are looking for someone named Nian Prince. The young ancient one, who had just become the supreme mage, felt puzzled and stared straight at the metal magic weapon necklace hanging around the girl's neck. There is no mistake, it is the same magic weapon as the Forbidden Time Stone. Inside, there is probably another Infinity Stone sealed inside. Do you know him? He is a big bad guy who always makes his mother sad. I've never heard of that name, but do you know what he looks like? The young Gui knelt down and summoned a magic floating cloak, trying to put it on the little girl. However, before the magic floating cloak could be attached to the opponent's body, it was separated by an invisible space barrier. Can't get close. The young Gui's pupils shrank. The little girl was clearly standing in front of him, but he couldn't touch her. The subtle space blocked everything. This is even more advanced than the use of mirror space, and seems to be an innate talent for spatial ability. Gu-yi suddenly understood why the other party was not afraid of the extreme cold on the top of the mountain. It turned out that the cold air and ice and snow had never touched the other party's body. I've never seen him, so I don't know what he looks like. My mother told me that I would recognize him immediately when I see him. The little girl's eyes flickered as she looked at young Gu-yi innocently. Besides, Mom doesn't let others touch me. Feel sorry. Where is your mother? Can you take me to see her? She's in the town at the bottom of the mountain. The little girl smiled softly, her eyes like crescent moons. I will take you there. The words just fell. The scene around the two of them instantly switched from the windy, snowy and cold 10,000-meter peak to a simple but large-scale town. The young ancient one recognized that this was indeed the base of Mount Everest, the central town of Nepal. What shocked Gu-yi was that there was not even a spell portal, nor could it touch him, so the little girl teleported here with him. It is as if space is isolated and transferred, and for the other party, it is as simple as walking. While the young Gu-yi was still stunned, the little girl with ponytails on the side suddenly waved her little hands vigorously towards a street. Hey, Mom! I'm here. Ancient Yi looked in the direction of the girl's call and saw a tall and outstanding woman. Although the other party was wearing linen clothes that were in line with the local characteristics and had a piece of gray and black gauze bandaged on his head, he had dark green hair that reached his waist underneath his beautiful face with clear outlines. There was a mature body with graceful curves. At first glance, it still looks very outstanding. However, the local residents were too afraid to look at each other. Where did you go just now? The green-haired woman stepped forward angrily. The little girl immediately showed a pitiful expression and pointed to the side. I found an ant on the top of a nearby mountain. The green-haired woman raised her eyes and was stunned for a moment. Ancient One. You know me? Young Gu-yi was surprised. That's right, but you probably don't know me yet. The green-haired woman smiled slightly. My name is Lorna, Polaris Lorna. Chapter 579. Unknown Time and Space, a Nepalese town located at the foot of Mount Everest. At night. The cold wind outside was howling like a knife, and a bonfire was crackling inside a one-story wooden house. On the bonfire was meat porridge that was starting to boil and smoke. A bald woman wearing a yellow monk's robe and a green-haired woman wearing a linen dress sat opposite each other across the bonfire. The girl fell asleep on the green-haired woman's lap. Excuse me. Gu Zhang looked around the house and found that the wooden house was newly built. It was fixed with wooden boards and iron nails. It was very strong in the cold wind. It should be us who have disturbed your world. Lorna smiled slightly and waved gently. As the green magnetism lingered on her fair and slender wrist, an iron spoon flew into the casserole and stirred it briefly. She scooped out a bowl of hot porridge and handed it to Gu-yi. Gu-yi chuckled and shook his head. No need to disturb me, you have not disturbed the local order, so I welcome your arrival. She took a sip of the hot porridge and said with bright eyes, it's done well. Really? Thank you. Lorna slightly pulled her dark green hair up to her earlobes, her beautiful and delicate face was flushed and sweating, and she chuckled. Actually, I didn't know how to cook at all a few years ago, but my sister is very good at cooking. It was only later, after leaving the original world, that I gradually learned these things. After all, some multidimensional worlds don't even have restaurants. Lorna lowered her head, her light green gem-like eyes reflected the bonfire, particularly tenderly reflecting the sleeping girl's face. The young ancient one looked at the beautiful, gentle, yet strong and powerful woman in front of him and sighed sincerely. Miss Lorna, you are so amazing, I rarely admire someone like this. Wandering among diversity, I still have to take a girl with me. Even the young ancient one was not completely sure that he could survive to this day unharmed. Gu-yi thought for a while and said sincerely, Miss Lorna, if you want, you can stay in the current universe and space, and I will find a safe haven for you. The green-haired woman smiled slightly and declined Gu-yi's proposal. Sorry, we won't stay in this universe for long. In the beginning, when she was a child, she had difficulty controlling her abilities. So we could only keep traveling through different multidimensional time and space. In the past 2 years, she has gradually mastered it. I thought it was time to embark on the journey back. No, Lorna paused her words and said firmly. We must return to that place, the time and space of the world where we were originally. Outside, the cold wind howled. Inside, the fire flickered. That's too hard. Young Ancient One shook her head and sighed. Although she had just become the Supreme Mage not long ago, she had already glimpsed a corner of the multidimensional realm. It's just a small part of the diversity, but it's too complicated and weird. Completely lost in the multidimensional field and want to return. When Gu-yi said it was too difficult, that was an understatement. In her opinion, it was basically impossible to achieve. Although the little girl has extremely high spatial talent, the other person was lost in multiple fields as soon as she was born, leaving no mark on the original world. In other words, she couldn't recognize the world she was born into. Such an almost aimless and random search through multiple dimensions, even if it reaches 11 million universes and time-spaces, it may only be extremely similar parallel universes. Gu-yi suddenly wanted to persuade the other party to let go and let the girl grow up safely in a universe and space, but the words came to his lips but he could not say them. What qualifications do I have to persuade a mother and daughter to return to their home? I want to go back. But at this moment, the little girl lying on Lorna's lap opened her big black eyes, pursed her red lips and said confidently. Since the moment I was born, I have already traveled through diversity, then I am 4 years old now. How old is it? Isn't it normal to travel between different places? Young Gu-yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. When you are 4 years old, is it normal to travel between different cultures? She is nearly 30 years old, and she is still full of fear and apprehension about diversity. The little girl continued, I want to go back and find the lost person. We too got lost, Lorna corrected angrily. Actually, almost. The girl's eyes moved darkly, smart and cunning. Looking at the tender yet stubborn mother and daughter, young Gu-yi remembered the name, Nian Prince, deeply in his mind. In her opinion, that man was simply the legendary child of luck. The corners of young Gu-yi's mouth rose quietly. However, the next moment, the warm atmosphere in the house was broken. The faces of Gu-yi and Lorna changed slightly, and the little girl also looked outside the room with some understanding, sensing the ominous energy. Gu-yi was very fast, got up and rushed out of the wooden house. As the wooden door opened, the Nepalese town outside was already in chaos. Look, what is that? The sky is splitting. I saw a pair of eyes. Not just one pair, but many eyes. The Nepalese residents outside looked up at the night sky, trembling as if they were witnessing the abyss of fear. Gu-yi and Lorna stood at the door of the wooden house, looking up. They could see that a gap burst out in the night sky 100 meters high. The gap was still expanding, and dark and strange tentacles were constantly reaching out from the other end, trying to remove this. A piece of earth and sky broke in and was completely torn apart. It's bad, it's him. The young ancient one's face changed drastically. Lorna, take good care of your daughter, it's best to stay away from this place for the time being. Throwing this sentence, the young ancient one waved the sleeves of his yellow monk robe and disappeared on the spot. The next moment, the figure of the young ancient one appeared in the night sky. Dormammu, don't even think about breaking in. The young ancient one waved his hands, and the golden form cut off the dark tentacles that stretched out from the space gap. Then, both hands released a golden long whip, trying to fill the expanding space gap like mending a hole in clothes. It's you again, however, you are still too young now, this universe and time are destined to be integrated into the dark dimension by me. In the space gap that looks like a small abyss, countless eyes opened in the darkness, and a hoarse and strange voice came from it. Dormammu actually had his eyes on this universe and time for a long time, but he had put the swallowing action on hold before. Now the dark dimension has just been seriously injured and needs to swallow a complete single universe to recover. You are not qualified to stop me. Dormammu smiled coldly, and the tentacle-like black shadow continued to surge outward, continuously expanding the space gap that the young ancient one tried to repair. Although he cannot completely interfere with the single universe, he can also play a part. At the current stage of the universe and time and space, a part of the power is likely to complete the invasion. Chapter 580. Above the night sky. A 5-meter-long space gap appeared in the night sky. 2 golden whips were like needles and threads trying to repair the gap, but no matter how hard the young ancient one tried, he still lost to the strange existence on the other side. The space gap did not close but continued to expand and tear. Chi. Soon, the space gap doubled in size, like a small rift abyss. Crash. But at this moment, there were countless metal creations in the town below, such as iron pots, shovels and other tools. All of which flew up under the drive of a force. The surface of the metal creations was attached with light green magnetic force, which surged wildly towards the abyss rift in the night sky, smashing the black shadow that kept protruding out. The trend of the space gap expanding outward suddenly slowed down. Ancient One looked at the bottom of the town and saw a green-haired woman holding one hand in the air, with green magnetic field fluorescence lingering on her body. I'm here to help. At the same time, a small figure actually flew into the night sky and pounced on the space gap. Don't go over there. Ancient One's face turned pale and he was shocked. But she was soon stunned. It was the little girl who pounced on the edge of the space gap. Her white and tender little hands seemed to really grab the empty space barrier and pull the space gap inward. Swish! The space gap really closed slightly inward under the girl's pull. Is there such a thing? Not only the young ancient one who had just become the supreme sorcerer, but also Dormammu in the dark dimension at the other end was stunned. She can actually touch the space boundary between the single universe and the multiverse. Is she also a multiverse-level existence? How is this possible? Dormammu would never believe it. When did the multiverse level become popular? Puff! Several black shadow energies rushed towards the girl from the other end of the space gap, but they all stopped outside the girl's body surface. It was as if there was another infinite universe dimension around the girl, isolated from the outside world. Dormammu suddenly realized, it's not at the multiverse level, but it has multiverse-level talents and abilities, and the potential has not yet fully grown. Dormammu, the Lord of the Dark Dimension, suddenly felt extremely jealous. Comparing people makes people angry. A human kid next door has grown into a multiverse existence stronger than him in less than 20 years. Now, this mysterious girl who came out of nowhere actually has an amazing talent that can grow to the multiverse level. Speaking of which, for some reason, this girl makes him feel inexplicably familiar, and even makes him feel inexplicably irritated. No matter, let's swallow this universe and time first. Knowing that the girl has not grown up yet, Dormammu breathed a sigh of relief, but he also became completely serious. Immediately, the space gap continued to expand little by little. Despite the assistance of Lorna and the girl, Ancient One still found it difficult to repair the space gap. Although Dormammu can only descend a part of the energy, his energy supply is endless. The young Ancient One looked at the little girl who seemed to have used up all her strength, knowing that she had tried her best. The Ancient One immediately made a decision. Lorna, I can't hold on any longer, you too should leave this universe. How can you haven't finished dinner with me yet. Below, Lorna clenched her fists, her dark green hair fluttered, and the green magnetic field almost used up all the metal within a radius of 10 kilometers. I am the supreme wizard of this world, and I can only coexist and die with this world. The Ancient One smiled with relief. You are different, promise me that you must return to your universe in the end. As soon as the words fell, the golden whip on the hands of the Ancient One broke at the limit, and the space gap above the night sky suddenly expanded several times, becoming a veritable dark abyss of tens of meters, and the huge wriggling black shadow at the other end of the abyss could be clearly seen. It's almost too late, go, I'll stop him. The young Ancient One said loudly, holding the necklace magic weapon on his neck, and decided to risk his life. Damn it! Lorna gritted her teeth and stamped her feet hard, and a girl's face vaguely came to mind. Is it time to escape from the current world again like the mutant universe before? Buzz! Suddenly, the metal necklace and pendant on the little girl at the edge of the space gap suddenly glowed with yellow gemstone light. As if, some subtle resonance was produced. The next moment, a colorful beam of light suddenly burst out from under the town, crossed the night sky, and plunged fiercely into the dark abyss formed by the space gap. Ah ah! A sharp scream came from the dark dimension at the other end. Wait, Dormammu is screaming. The Ancient One was stunned. Why is it you again? I didn't provoke you this time. It's endless, right? The hoarse words from the dark dimension had a sense of exasperation and deep fear. Afterwards, before the young Ancient One could react, the space gap in front of him that could allow part of Dormammu's body to descend actually quickly closed up. The night sky, which was ravaged by strange phenomena, returned to its original state in an instant. The young Ancient One had no reaction at all. Dormammu ran away. As the Lord of the Dark Dimension, he actually retreated. It was as if he was afraid of and avoiding a more powerful existence. Recalling the colorful energy beam just now, the young Ancient One couldn't help but look down at the town. On the simple and primitive streets of the town, Lorna's tall body stiffened for a moment. The colorful beam that had repelled Dormammu had burst out from behind her. However, the energy beam that was powerful enough to annihilate everything passed by. Lorna didn't feel a bit uneasy, but felt unprecedented peace of mind, as if the familiar colorful energy would never hurt herself. No mistake, this feeling is. Lorna's delicate body trembled slightly, and suddenly looked back, and saw a familiar young man with the characteristics of colorful light. There was not much change from what she remembered. It was still the same as 4 or 5 years ago. The young man smiled at her and said hello, hi, Polaris boss, you are here. Have you had dinner? Do you want to? Before the young man finished speaking, his waist-length dark green hair was lifted up, and the hem of his long skirt also fluttered. Lorna had thrown herself into his arms, with her arms tightly clasped around her neck. Stupid little brother, I thought I would never see you again. Lorna's voice was trembling, and her body was constantly shaking. She was not as calm as when she talked to the young Ancient One. From childhood to adulthood, there are not many things that can make me feel scared. The thing I am most afraid of so far is that I can't see you again. That will be more desperate than death. Boss Polaris, long time no see. Nian hugged Luna tightly, smelled the faint fragrance of her dark green hair, and let out a breath that he had been holding for a long time. It's not easy to find you. Chapter 581. Pa. With a slight landing sound, Gu-Yi and the little girl fell back to the ground from the night sky. The little girl opened her shiny black eyes and stared blankly at the two people hugging each other not far ahead. It was the first time she saw Luna's mother crying. Why don't you go over there? The young Gu-Yi smiled knowingly and couldn't help but urge the little girl next to him. Yes. Bad guy, don't bully my mother. Go away, or I will be rude. That's not what I meant. The young Gu-Yi was speechless when he saw this. Nian was also a little amused and looked down at the cute girl who was less than 1 meter tall and looked like a puppet. Little guy, you misunderstood, how dare I bully the boss of Polaris? Lorna in Nian's arms also hurriedly wiped the tears from her face and couldn't help saying, Little Moon, he really didn't bully me. I just saw. The little girl muttered, looked up at the tall figure of the young man with a radiant light, and suddenly stopped. The kind of intimacy and familiarity that came naturally, and the subtle feeling that seemed to be maintaining the two of them. The girl suddenly understood what Luna's mother had said before. When you see him, you can recognize him. Mom, you are not lying. The girl's original momentum was lost, and she quickly and cleverly hid behind Luna, carefully sticking her head out to observe the young man. Lorna smiled, and she picked up the little girl behind her. Little Moon, come on, call daddy. Nian gave a standard self-introduction. Hello, I'm Nian Prince. The little girl buried her face in Lorna in a panic. This child. Lorna wondered, she has never been afraid of strangers. I don't know what happened tonight. It's inevitable when we meet for the first time. Nian didn't care. He focused his eyes on Lorna and the girl, took a deep breath and said firmly, but I promise you that I will never lose you again. In addition, you don't have to worry about being scared and wandering around in the multiverse in the future. We will go back together, back to where we really belong. Nian put one hand on Lorna's shoulder and touched the girl's head with the other hand. This time, the girl did not avoid or resist. On the contrary. The little girl secretly looked at the cool young man in front of her. At this moment, the other party was like the sun, bright and dazzling. Mom really didn't lie. The girl thought to herself. The North Star, the little moon, and the sun, they are a real family. After reuniting with Lorna, Nian's eyes turned to the bald woman standing quietly with her hands behind her back not far away. The other party was exactly the same as the Ancient One in his impression. Except that he could still see the emotions of a human being from his face. He was not the supreme mage who looked young in appearance but had already aged in heart after protecting the earth for hundreds of years. At present, the magic energy of the Ancient One was still very pure. He had not absorbed the power of Dormammu's dark dimension. So he was naturally weaker than the Ancient One hundreds of years later, otherwise Dormammu would not have been able to invade at will. Nian said to the young Ancient One, my name is Nian Prince, thank you for your care for them. I should be the one to thank, the Ancient One smiled and replied gratefully. It was you who stopped Dormammu's invasion and saved this universe. In fact, we don't need to be so polite, Nian suddenly smiled, with a look of reminiscence in his eyes. Ancient One looked at Nian curiously. But Nian pointed his finger. And the colorful light on the vibranium armor flowed. A colorful ball of light the size of a basketball flew forward, emitting strands of colorful light and hovering in front of Master Ancient One. The sacred and brilliant colorful light almost illuminated the entire Nepalese town. What is this? The young Ancient One looked at the colorful ball of light hanging in front of him in surprise, and felt from it the surging energy equivalent to a part of Dormammu's body, but more pure. That is a part of the multiverse energy. If you feel that you are not strong enough to protect the Earth in the current universe, then you can safely draw energy from it. Nian, who was at the multiverse level of the 5-in-1 mode, shrugged and warned. That multiverse energy is enough for you to use for 1,000 years, don't try to get involved in other multiverse energies, otherwise you will be gradually invaded by the owner of the energy. The young Ancient One was silent for a moment, stared at Nian and asked, why, do you help me like this? There is no special reason, I just want to do this. Nian smiled. If there is any reason, it is that he owes it to Ancient One. In the past, Ancient One had helped him a lot without any reason. Now, as if by some unknown fate, Nian came to the marvel time and space of the present and the past to repay the favor that was owed a long time ago. Goodbye, Master. Nian took Luna's hand, and after leaving this sentence, the three of them disappeared from the spot. Only the young ancient one was left standing there, staring at the colorful energy ball in a daze. Devouring space, the headquarters of the Destiny Alliance. In the grand and glorious large living room. Wow, isn't she too cute? The black-haired little girl, who was only 4 years old, was surrounded by a group of gorgeous young women. Especially Spider-Woman Gwen and Superwoman Kara, who sandwiched the little girl in the middle of the sofa in the living room, rubbing their pretty faces against each other, their beautiful eyes sparkling with love. A bit like Nian when she was a child. Gwen's love was beyond words. Okay, Gwen, you're too close, you'll scare her, Kara said gently. Kara, you're also too close. Watch your strength. Gwen stuck out her tongue. They wanted a child several years ago. For this, they drained Nian, who was about to die, but unfortunately they didn't get pregnant as they wished. Now looking at the girl is like seeing their own child. The little girl surrounded by the members of the Destiny Alliance blinked her eyes. Although she was a little distressed by the overly enthusiastic little faces. She felt the kindness from everyone, so much so that the infinite universe maintained on her body's surface was withdrawn. Oh, aren't these all mothers? Thinking of this, the little girl's face became even more distressed. Excuse me, how many mothers do I have? This may be the first problem she will face when she returns to the prince family. At this time. Okay. Nian, who has returned to normal mode, walked in from the main door of the living room and opened his hands. Everyone, it's time for a meeting. He paused, raised the corners of his mouth, clenched his fists, and said forcefully. Convene a general meeting of the Destiny Alliance. Chapter 582. Living room, on the other side. Welcome back, Lorna. Wonder Woman Diana looked at Lorna, the North Star, whom she had not seen for a long time, and said sincerely. Lorna nodded gently, put her palm on her chest, and smiled happily. Yes, I'm back, Miss Diana. In the past few years, I have been missing you all. There is someone who has been worried about you for thousands of days and nights. Diana smiled and gestured behind her. Lorna looked over there and saw a red-haired woman in a red-made dress, who was also looking at her. The next moment, both of them took steps involuntarily, walked towards each other and hugged each other tightly. Wanda, I'm sorry, I made you worry. Lorna's light green eyes were filled with a layer of water vapor. It's good to be back, it's good to be back. Wanda also suppressed her emotions, and gently patted the other's back with her palm, and the dark red hair and dark green hair of the two sisters intertwined with each other. At this time, Nian, who walked into the living room, heard the words of convening a general meeting. Lorna and Wanda separated a little, looked at each other, and then nodded with tears and smiles. Let's go. The main meeting hall of the Destiny Alliance. Due to the addition of the new member Phoenix Chin some time ago, an extra chair was added to the main hall of the round table. At this moment, under the eternal sacred light on the huge and magnificent chair, 13 figures shining with dazzling brilliance all sat on it, without leaving a single chair empty. The chairs represent respectively the 13th ring, that is, the 13th new member of the Destiny Alliance, Phoenix Chin from the mutant universe time and space. The 12th ring, as a former member of the Justice League, Satana, the reverse language magician. The 11th ring, the vibranium smart housekeeper transformed from artificial intelligence, Alice. The 10th ring, originally in Gotham as the Queen of Crime, Plant Lover, Poison Ivy. The 9th ring, the daughter of Krypton, former Justice League superhero, Supergirl, Kara. The 8th ring, the head maid of the Prince family, Scarlet Witch, Wanda Prince. The 7th ring, the only female hero member of the former Fantastic Four, Invisible Woman, Susan. The 6th ring, the Empress of the Atlantis Empire, the owner of the Trident, Mara. The 5th ring, the former director of S.H.I.E.L.D., the pre-member of the Avengers, Shockwave, Sky. The 4th ring, the gang boss, the master of metal magnetic fields, Polaris, Lorna. The 3rd ring, the former Avengers intern superhero, Spider-Woman, Gwen. The 2nd ring, the descendant of the Greek gods, the Amazon Princess of Paradise Island, Wonder Woman Diana Prince. And, the 1st ring. Sitting on the main seat, the founder and ruler of the Destiny Alliance, Nian Prince. The above, 13 members of the Destiny Alliance, all present. There is one more person living in the headquarters of the Destiny Alliance, the Phoenix girl Xiaoqin, who is a maid. However, due to her age, she cannot fulfill her alliance obligations, so she is not counted as a formal member for the time being. As soon as everyone sat down on the chairs in the main hall of the meeting, before the meeting started, many people cast their eyes on the fourth chair. The chair that had been empty all the time was finally no longer empty. I'm sorry to have worried you, and to have come to the multiverse together. Polaris Lorna no longer had the previous strength and domineering, and spoke softly with the gentleness of a young woman and mother. It's okay, we had a lot of fun in the multiverse, right, Kara? Gwen blinked and bumped her elbow with Kara next to her. Yes, we encountered many powerful enemies, Kara nodded and replied with a smile. What powerful enemies? They were all killed by you with one punch. At least I have seen a lot of things. It turns out that there are so many magical places besides our universe, Mara smiled slightly. Total, it didn't take much time, Susan smiled. Nice to meet you, Miss Lorna, Phoenix Chin greeted her. Welcome back, Poison Ivy simply added what she had not said before. Welcome. Zatanna raised a curve at the corner of her mouth and used her own inverted language. You are my sister, of course I have to find you back. Wanda said as a matter of course. This is the first time it's so lively here, Alice sighed softly. In this way, everyone is here, Diana smiled indifferently, and her beautiful eyes full of wisdom turned to Nian on the side. Yes, everyone is here. Nian exhaled, and then smiled and said, then now, the general meeting of the Destiny Alliance officially begins. Immediately. The lively and harmonious meeting hall became quiet, and the 12 formal female members all set their eyes on Nian who was sitting in the main seat. Actually, there's nothing to say. Nian smiled, he stood up from his chair and looked around at everyone in the field, since our original purpose of entering the multiverse has been perfectly achieved. Now, I declare that the multiverse journey will come to an end. Nian put his hands on the table and uttered the last sentence, let's go home together. The main meeting room was silent for a second or two, and then a burst of joy and noise broke out. Let's go home together. Return to the original world. All the members of Tianming were excited and excited. No matter what, the multiverse was not their true home. I will definitely take you back to that place. Nian's eyes were as bright as torches, full of determination. So far, after traveling through 4 or 5 multiverses, the Destiny Alliance will officially embark on the return journey. Outside the headquarters of the Destiny Alliance, on the grass next to the artificial lake. A beam of white light formed the appearance of a little fat man, who looked around and said, your place is really good, it's actually set up inside a cat, it's quite an idea. These were not there at the beginning, Nian said. Everything here started from when I picked up a cat of a devouring beast, and then I met a creature called Starro, and finally there were so many people I knew, and finally this place was perfected step by step. The Transcendence narrowed his eyes, what do you want to express? Nian said casually, what I want to say is that life lies in miracles, the most beautiful thing is uncertainty, which is full of infinite possibilities. Nian glanced at the Transcendence, what you have been pursuing is this kind of uncertainty in life. The Transcendence was silent for a moment, then smiled and said, you are worthy of being the one she pays attention to. You are really interesting, but I want to remind you that death will never fall in love with others. The Transcendence looked at Nian deeply. Thank you, but in my opinion, nothing is absolute, Nian smiled slightly. If even he lost confidence, there was really no hope of achieving something that would not look good even for the Transcendence. Come on, we'll see you again in the future. The Transcendence patted Nian's shoulder, and his body turned into beams of white light, tearing through the space where the devouring dimension was and leaving. I hope to see you next time, you have found the meaning of your life, Transcendence. Nian whispered. The white light quickly disappeared on the artificial planet in the devouring dimension. Nian was about to return to the headquarters of the Destiny Alliance, but soon stopped. It can be seen that a small line of glowing white runes was left on the shoulder that the Transcendence had just patted. That is, the coordinates of a multidimensional spacetime. Nian was shocked. Home. Chapter 583. Somewhere in space and time. In the afternoon. A modern suite residence in downtown Washington. Ding dong. The doorbell rang suddenly. Who? Mary Jane, who was wearing an apron and preparing to cook dinner, walked out of the kitchen curiously. I didn't invite anyone to come to the door, Officer George, who was sitting on the sofa, shrugged. He was still wearing the sergeant's uniform that he had not changed out of and was reading an open daily newspaper carefully. I'm not even going to open the door. Lady Mary complained and walked quickly towards the front door where the bell was ringing. Didn't I just see something important? Officer George shrugged. Since Gwen left, you have become more and more lazy, you don't have to show it in front of me, right? Mrs. Mary said angrily. Officer George paused while turning over the newspaper and remained silent without answering. Mrs. Mary also realized that she had said the wrong thing, but she still came to the door first and opened it. Under her surprised gaze, a handsome curly-haired white young man and a middle-aged woman with intact appearance and figure stood outside the door. "My God, George, look who's here." Mrs. Mary reached out her hand to cover her open mouth in surprise. "Peter, and May." Officer George put down the newspaper in his hand with a happy face when he saw the familiar figure standing outside the door. Cousin, good evening to both of you." Peter Parker smiled and said hello. Okay, it looks like I've grown a lot taller." Mrs. Mary stepped forward, gently hugged the curly-haired young man, and kissed his cheek. Immediately, she complained to Aunt May on the side, "May, why didn't you tell me in advance when you came here? I have a surprise for you. Isn't it almost Christmas? I want to come over in advance to have some fun." "Yeah, it's almost Christmas again." Mrs. Mary sighed with emotion, then slapped her chest. "Don't worry, tonight's dinner will be sumptuous." It didn't take long. The city outside was gradually shrouded in darkness. Inside the house, under bright lights, the dining table is filled with steaming delicacies such as roast chicken, steak, sausages, etc. George and Mary, as well as May and Peter, took their seats. However, when the four people sat down on the seats, they discovered that there would be 2 empty seats anyway. The 4 of them suddenly fell silent in front of the table full of delicious food. Mrs. Mary said with an embarrassed look on her face, "I am also getting old and am so forgetful, I will take it back now." May stretched out her hand to stop her, and said with a smile, "No need, Mary, really, just leave it like this, so that we can feel more at ease. I remember, when Cousin Gwen and Brother Nian were here, this place was always very lively." Peter Parker recalled in a daze, 2 years have passed, and I don't know how they are doing now. His words seemed to completely open up the thoughts of several people on the field. No matter how much we go around, we can't avoid talking about those 2 people. Officer George was no longer silent and cursed in a low voice, "That brat, you'd better take good care of Gwen for me. Don't worry, I believe in Nian." Mrs. Mary smiled slightly and gently put a hand on the back of her husband's hand. In the past 2 years, there have been a lot more gray hairs on their heads. After no longer deliberately avoiding talking about the 2 people who left this world, the 4 of them felt much happier. Then, they no longer cared about the 2 empty chairs and began to enjoy the sumptuous dinner contentedly. But, dinner was halfway through. The cell phone in Officer George's pocket rang at an inappropriate time with a rapid incoming call. "What did you say? Get on the phone." Hearing the words reported by the subordinate police officer on the other end of the phone, Officer George's face suddenly became solemn. "I know, I'll go over immediately." Peter Parker paused while enjoying his dinner. With his keen hearing, he also heard the report on the other end of the phone. In the next street, there was an extraordinary incident of unknown tentacled creatures hurting people on the street. At the same time, Justice League headquarters. In the huge meeting hall, there was sitting a tall man in a dark bat-style armor. A cloaked man wearing an S-family totem Superman tights, a black man with more than half of his body mechanized, and a man wearing a red lightning-marked armor. As well as a burly alien with green skin all over his body. There are also 4 young men wearing different bat-style uniforms, fully armed and guarding the entrance of the main conference hall. Superman Clark asked calmly and forcefully, "Bruce, why are you calling us here in such a hurry tonight?" Batman Bruce looked at Cyborg seriously. "Cyborg, you discovered this, come and tell them." "Good." Knowing that the situation was urgent, Cyborg immediately stood up from his chair and cast a holographic projection on the conference table with his red electronic eye. It was a blue round planet model. "Everyone, please look, this is Earth." Cyborg said in a deep voice, "We humans have always longed for the mysterious starry sky, but very few of us have set our sights on the underground of the Earth. You must know that the maximum observation limit of the Earth from the surface to the center of the Earth is only 12 kilometers, which is equivalent to less than 0.2 of the Earth's radius. So, Cyborg, you're not going to give us a geography lesson tonight, are you? A few years ago, even with the most advanced technology on Earth, it was impossible to detect the detailed conditions under the Earth's crust." Cyborg continued, "Until recently, I often felt irregular movements of the Earth's crust, so I used the Mother Box's apocalypse technology to conduct a detailed investigation of the interior of the Earth." He paused, cold sweat streaming down half of his dark face, and said in a deep voice, "Then, I peeked into an extremely terrifying thing hidden deep in the Earth. It may also be one of the ultimate truths in the current world." For Cyborg to be so frightened, Batman was on alert. Others realized that things were not simple and asked in unison, "Cyborg, what exactly did you find?" "Look, this is the model of the Earth's interior that I got through scanning," Cyborg said as the 3-dimensional projection of the Earth released began to show more details. From the Earth's crust, upper and lower mantle, to the outer core, everything is normal. But when the details of the model of the Earth's deepest core were presented, everyone in the Justice League was stunned. The Flash opened his eyes in surprise. What is that thing like a human embryo in the core? Martian Manhunter said, obviously it's a creature, a biological embryo that's so big that it's unimaginable. Superman Clark raised his eyebrows, that's too big, I'm afraid it's not hundreds of kilometers across. Cyborg smiled bitterly and said, this is still in the process of incubation by absorbing the energy of the Earth's creatures. When it hatches and grows, its normal size may be larger than a planet. Chapter 584. This. Realizing something, the four Robins at the entrance of the main hall of the meeting took a breath of cold air. Such a huge biological volume means that once it hatches, the Earth will be destroyed. Flash looked at the three-dimensional projection model and asked in disbelief, such a large biological embryo, how was it put into the core of the Earth? This is the really terrifying thing to think about, Cyborg responded. Perhaps, it can only be put in at the moment when the planet is formed. Mars Hunter nodded and agreed with this statement, this is really tricky. Superman Clark suddenly said, I remember that before Nian left this universe, he said to be careful of the Celestials, they created this world. Flash said blankly, you mean, this thing is the Celestials? What kind of creature is that? It doesn't matter now, what matters is that it is still alive and is about to hatch in the Earth. Can we kill it before it hatches? Superman asked directly. Killing the opponent is often the simplest, crudest, and effective method. Cyborg shook his head and said, it's too deep, even if we can get to that place, it's too late, according to my observations and calculations, the creature will hatch tomorrow. Tomorrow, there's less than half a day left, we don't have much time left, Batman sighed, but didn't give up. He put his hands on the table and said to everyone on the field. No matter what, let's make our best preparations to face everything that is coming. On the other side, Washington. Several police cars with sirens whizzed past on the main road next to the pedestrian street. On a 20-meter-high building opposite, Spider-Man, wearing a new spider suit made of nanometal, lay there. Spider-Man's pupils dilated and kept scanning the pedestrian street below. Many pedestrians still had lingering fears. There were a lot of bloodstains on the pedestrian street, and a cordon had been set up around it. Leaving from the sewer of the pedestrian street. Spider-Man pondered for a moment and was about to jump down and enter the sewer from a manhole cover. But at this moment, the spider sense issued a strong warning, which made his hair stand on end. Behind him. Spider-Man hurriedly turned around. But he saw a Martian portal rotating and condensing on the rooftop behind him, and a strange middle-aged gentleman with a blue cape on his shoulders walked out of it. Spider-Man breathed a sigh of relief, Mr. Strange, it turned out to be you. What do you think it is? Dr. Strange looked at him expressionlessly. Did you notice it? A gray-black monster, like a wolf, but 5 or 6 times larger than a wolf, with tentacles all over its body. I saw it, but those are just minions, follow me. Dr. Strange said, and stepped into the portal. Spider-Man followed him in skillfully. On the other side of the portal was the main hall on the first floor of the New York Temple. Have you heard of the Celestials? Dr. Strange asked straight to the point. Spider-Man blinked and asked curiously, the Celestials, what is that? Okay, Dr. Strange shrugged. I thought that the second-generation Supreme Sorcerer, that is, Nian, would have mentioned it to you before. He did not forget to hit Spider-Man in passing, but think about it, you were just a child at that time, of course, even now 2 years have passed, you are just a slightly more mature child. Spider-Man couldn't help but droop. To this day, although he has been making progress, he has never been able to reach the superhero evaluation of Spider-Woman at the time. Dr. Strange continued, due to the instructions of the second-generation Supreme Sorcerer, in the past 2 years, I have been trying to trace the secrets of the Celestials and the mysteries of the universe. Did you find it? Spider-Man asked in a cooperative manner. Of course, I'm not like you. Dr. Strange raised his hands, and the ceiling of the main hall on the first floor of the temple suddenly turned into a dark and empty universe starry sky. Then, a giant phantom of unknown size appeared in this universe starry sky. Spider-Man opened his eyes wide, watching the giant shadow put his hands together and rubbed out a dazzling planet out of thin air. Dr. Strange said in a deep voice, they are the original creators of many civilizations, including the Sun and life planets. It can be said that the Earth was also created by them. And they created these planetary civilizations only to develop their own race. Because every newborn of the Celestials needs to be implanted in a life planet like a seed, constantly absorbing the energy of the creatures on the planet, so that it can be truly hatched. Spider-Man heard this and reacted quickly and exclaimed, so, our Earth also. That's right, Dr. Strange nodded. There is also an embryo seed of the Celestials in our Earth, and it will hatch tomorrow. Once it is completely hatched, the Earth will be destroyed. This is too sudden. Spider-Man opened his mouth in shock. If possible, I would like to know this situation earlier, Doctor Strange sighed. I also gradually discovered it after observing that there are some traces of Eternals on Earth. Eternals, what are they? Spider-Man follows the good tradition of asking questions when he doesn't understand. How come you don't know anything? Before, Thanos, who tried to invade the Earth, was a member of the Eternals. Doctor Strange glanced at him unhappily. The Celestials came to the Earth a long time ago and created 3 major races. One is a large group that can reproduce and provide life energy, that is, humans. The second is the monster you saw on the pedestrian street just now, the mutants. Originally, those monsters were created to protect humans, but later mutated and developed into creatures that hunt humans. The third is the Eternals, slaves who serve the Celestials and fight everywhere. At this point, Doctor Strange looked at Spider-Man with a little helplessness. If you don't understand anything, ask them all at once. No more. Spider-Man shook his head and took a deep breath and said, so, tomorrow, we are going to fight those creators called the Celestials. If nothing unexpected happens, that's it. Doctor Strange nodded, and his opinion of Spider-Man changed a lot. After all, ordinary people would have collapsed to the ground in fear when faced with such a situation. That's the real creator. What can he use to compete with the other party? Mr. Strange, Spider-Man thought for a moment, raised his head and asked resolutely. Do we have a chance of winning? Chance of winning. Doctor Strange was silent for a moment, and finally exhaled slowly. To be honest, if we really fight the Celestials, there is no chance at all. If the second generation Supreme was here, maybe there would be a 10 or 20 chance. Doctor Strange said, and cast his eyes on the cauldron of all things in the New York Temple. There is the only backup left by the second generation Supreme Sorcerer Nian before he left, and it is also the trump card. Perhaps it is time to turn it over. Chapter 585. The next day, at noon. The sky was cloudless, and the golden sun shone freely on the vast sea, with sparkling waves. In the heart of the Atlantic Ocean, thick smoke was billowing from the crater of an island. Accompanied by a buzzing sound, a helicopter slowly passed by the air hundreds of meters above the island. The helicopter door opened, and a camera lens first poked out from it, shooting at the crater of the island below. Everyone can see that this is an island deep in the Atlantic Ocean, called Dia Island. A large number of dinosaur fossils have been discovered on this island. It is an ancient island that has existed since ancient times. Recently, the volcano in the center of the island has frequently shown signs of activation. The helicopter was also accompanied by a young female reporter in standard dress. The other party was explaining in a gentle manner against the strong wind, as if filming a news material. But at this time, the young female reporter's words stopped abruptly, and she looked down with doubt in her eyes. Wait, it seems that there is someone below. The photographer also adjusted the camera lens in time. From the perspective of the camera, we can see that nearly 10 people are fighting on Dia Island, and every move they make causes rocks to collapse, and various strange phenomena appear on the island. Lasers, storms, earthquakes, fist waves. That is definitely not human. TSK. One of the young men glanced up during the battle. And 2 parallel golden laser beams burst out of his eyes. The laser beams passed by the helicopter and melted off one side of the helicopter's outer shell, scaring the people who were recording the news to turn pale. Lift off quickly. The photographer shouted in horror, holding the camera steadily with his hand and pointing the lens downward. The driver was also scared to death by the scene just now, and hurriedly pulled up the height of the helicopter. And the more terrifying things are still behind. On the sea, the previously clear sky was suddenly covered by a cloud. Bang! The vast ocean next to Dia Island suddenly lifted up a palm-shaped sea surface fault, covering an area of dozens of kilometers. No, it was a hand. A huge golden and translucent palm that was tens of kilometers in size. The palm rose from the bottom of the sea to the sky, bringing up huge amounts of sea water, forming a waterfall. Even if the helicopter flew at an altitude of nearly 1,000 meters, it was difficult to see the outline of the giant hand clearly. God, is that true? Did I see it wrong? The female reporter opened her mouth and looked down in disbelief, with fear from her genes. It was as if she had witnessed the Creator with her own eyes and witnessed the ultimate truth of the world. Look, over there. The photographer glanced up and almost fell down, his hands holding the camera trembling constantly. It can be seen that in the sea area more than 10 kilometers away from the giant palm, there suddenly rose a golden and translucent giant head, which was larger than an ordinary large island. If the head and palm presented on the sea surface were connected together, the other party's body revealed was less than 1/10, but it had already occupied the entire vast Atlantic hinterland. Everyone on the helicopter was stunned. When this horrific scene captured by the camera was broadcast live on media channels around the world, people who saw it were horrified beyond words. No one knew what it was, but just one look at it would tell you how huge it was, how small and weak it was. The difference between humans and him is thousands of times greater than that between ants and humans. At this time. Underwater world, Atlantis. The super-civilized empire located in the abyss of 10,000 meters under the sea shook violently, and the sea was turbulent. The new queen of Atlantis led a group of soldiers to the outside of the empire's gate, and could see a land-like body sticking out from the ground further down the sea. That body has not yet completely solidified from nothingness, but is in a half-real and half-virtual awakening state. And when his body is completely hatched and solidified, it will tear the earth like an eggshell like a newborn creature, and use it as nutrients for its own growth. This is the moment when the other party welcomes a new life, and it will also be the day of the destruction of the earth. Buzz. Just as the people on the helicopter were terrified, the sound of the engine and sonic boom sounded, and a shadow suddenly stopped above the helicopter. The female reporter leaned on the window, looked up, and vaguely saw a bat-shaped spaceship. Next to the spaceship, 3 tall figures hovered in the sky side by side. They were Superman, Martian Manhunter, and Cyborg in black battle suits. The Justice League is here. Now, since the old batch of superhero members such as Thor, Iron Man, and Captain America have retired and disappeared from the world, the Justice League has become the well-deserved first hero team on the Earth. Under the ocean. A young woman with Asian appearance fell on the giant palm that rose from the ground to the sea surface. Her face was full of anxiety. She quickly pressed her hands on the palm that was tens of kilometers in size, with her location as the center. The golden palm that had not yet completely solidified suddenly ushered in the ice like a tide. But although the freezing speed was very fast, the palm was too large and it took some time to spread. Step. But at this moment, a white young man landed on the frosted palm next to the Asian woman. The white youth said in a deep voice, "Circe, you know, I won't let you stop the god Tiamat from appearing." He sighed and said, "I really can't understand, we are all Eternals, and we exist to help the gods hatch." Ikari's, Circe's face was firm, and her hands were still on the giant palm, without stopping the action of freezing the giant god's body. She said resolutely, "The gods hatching the gods will destroy the earth, and I won't let this happen. Then there is no way, for the gods, I can only do this." Ikari's looked at Circe, and his eyes suddenly lit up with golden pupils, and 2 golden laser beams burst out from them. At the critical moment. Whoosh! 2 red laser beams intercepted the golden laser beams. Huh! As the strongest of the Eternals, Ikari's looked at him in doubt, and saw a man with a fluttering black cloak and an S totem on his chest falling from the sky. Superman. Circe and Ikari's were both stunned. Even though they are Eternals and can look down on most creatures in the universe, they cannot ignore the descendants of the Kryptonians in front of them. "You can stop it from hatching, right?" Superman Clark asked Circe beside him. Circe nodded quickly, "Yes, I can freeze it, and then gather the power of other Eternals to put it to sleep." "Then you continue, I'll deal with him." Before Superman finished speaking, his figure flashed, and with the delayed sonic boom, he had already pushed Ikari's to fly several kilometers away. Chapter 586. Earth. The aftermath of the shock from the Atlantic Ocean spread throughout the world. At this time, some jackal-like tentacle monsters frequently appeared in many large countries. At this moment when the god Tiamat appeared, the mutant race that had been sleeping since ancient times began to cause chaos everywhere, and tried to absorb the genetic energy of some extraordinary people. Washington, New York, Berlin, Gotham City, Metropolis. Many big cities were not spared, and everything was in chaos, looking like an apocalyptic scene. At this moment. Washington, a 2-story duplex villa located in the suburbs. The doors and windows of the villa were closed and the curtains were drawn. The yard was overgrown with weeds and the steps were covered with a thick layer of dust, as if no one had been here for a long time. Hold head high. 2 mutant monsters rushed out of the nearby town violently and quickly, as if smelling the extraordinary genetic aura left in the villa. They couldn't help but quicken their pace and force their way into the front yard of the villa. They are as big as a bullfight, with dark black tentacles waving all over their bodies, just like hunters coming out of hell. Sniff. The 2 mutant monsters lowered their heads and sniffed the smell on the steps of the courtyard. A bloodthirsty green light appeared in their eyes, and they were about to forcefully break through the locked door of the villa and rush inside. But, the next moment. Well. A sigh sounded faintly. The 2 mutant monsters seemed to have been struck by lightning. They stopped all movements and looked at the closed door of the villa, their ferocious bodies trembling uncontrollably. "Yaya!" A crow sounded, and the sound came from inside the bodies of two mutant monsters. The two mutants whimpered, turned around and ran away, but as soon as they rushed out of the villa yard, their entire bodies exploded. Pft, pft. Dozens of strange black ravens flapped their wings violently, and flew out from the bodies of the two mutants. The ravens flew into the sky in groups, and soon turned into black feathers, dissipating beautifully and strangely. The yard returned to its usual calm. Inside the villa with closed doors and windows. In the darkness, a girl's voice sounded coldly, "You are not allowed to come here. Before he comes back, anyone who breaks in will die." Atlantic Heartland. After Superman Clark stopped Ikari's, Cersei was able to continue using her ability to freeze the gods. Will it succeed? Martian Manhunter and Cyborg were hovering hundreds of meters above the sky, looking down at the god with the outline of his giant body. The ocean was like a larger bathing pan to each other. Soon, only the palms and head of the newly born god protruded from the sea. The half-empty giant body was completely covered with a layer of frozen frost. Like a golden statue magnified thousands of times, and gradually stopped the trend of continuing to appear. Successful, Cersei of the Eternals exhaled. Next, just by gathering the power of several other Eternals members, the god Diamo, who is fostered in the core of the earth, can fall into a deep sleep. They have been lurking on the earth for thousands of years, and have long had feelings for this world. A large part of the Eternals want to save the earth even if they defy the gods. As for the consequences of disobeying the gods, they have already anticipated it. In the hinterland of the Atlantic Ocean, a high altitude. A Martian portal emerged above the sea, and a blue imitation magic floating cloak flew out with Doctor Strange. His right foot was stuck to a spider silk, and Spider-Man in a nanosuit hung upside down under the spider silk. Spider-Man looked at the frozen god who had stopped moving in the distance, and couldn't help but said with joy, "Great, the hatching of the god has been prevented. In this way, the Earth can be saved, right? This is just the beginning." Doctor Strange shook his head unoptimistically, as if following his words. The next moment, Superman and Ikari's came to the island from a fierce battle at sea. Cersei of the Eternals was relieved on the frozen palm. Martian Manhunter and Cyborg were observing the battle from the air, Batman and the Flash in the Batfighter, and Spider-Man hanging upside down from Doctor Strange and more. Everyone in the hinterland of the Atlantic Ocean feels like they are facing a formidable enemy. That feeling comes from the sky above, beyond space. Bang! The dark clouds that originally covered the sky were swept away in an instant, but instead of casting the proper sunlight downwards, a cold face covered half of the sky, and four indifferent golden pupils looked down at the ocean. God, God! Ikari's, who could barely fight Superman, knelt on the island tremblingly. "I failed to complete my mission." Superman looked up, flew into the sky, and clenched his fists feeling the pressure. Under the shocked gaze of other Justice League members, Doctor Strange and others. A giant being that was human-shaped, with a body made of unknown metal, and a cold body glowing with golden energy, descended into the outer space of the Earth and looked down at everything that happened in the hinterland of the Atlantic Ocean and the relevant people. More than one statue. There are 3 humanoid beings larger than asteroids, standing side by side in the outer space of the Earth, almost blocking all sunlight in the hinterland of the Atlantic Ocean. The largest one is 50,000 meters high. The smallest one is 30,000 meters tall. Fortunately, the supreme being from the celestial group did not come. Cersei could only comfort herself this way. The arrival of 3 ordinary gods was indeed devastating, but compared to the arrival of the supreme of the god group, it was a truly irreversible nightmare. To stop the god from appearing, judgment is needed. The largest god who descended to the near space of the Earth made a deafening sound from the heart, and tried to reach out to the frozen sleeping newborn god. Bang! A sharp sonic boom sounded, and the dark cloak fluttered. Superman directly crashed into the giant hand that covered the sky and the sun. Although the size difference was too large, he still knocked the giant hand of the god back a little. Who do you want to judge? The Earth, or us? Are you worthy? Die. The 3 gods looked down at the extremely tiny Superman Clark at the same time, wanting to punish him at the same time. Boom! The Batfighter suddenly fired at a god, but it had no effect, but it was like a signal. Let's do it together. Go! Mars Manhunter and Cyborg rushed towards a slightly smaller Celestial without hesitation. Crazy. They are all crazy, and they want to go to war with the Celestials. The Eternals at the scene were shocked. Not far away, in the Atlantic hinterland. Let's go too. Doctor Strange said, without waiting for Spider-Man to respond, and quickly made a series of hand seals with his hands. The space next to Doctor Strange and Spider-Man, as well as the space next to the second largest celestial, refracted light like a glass mirror. Then, the two of them and the second largest celestial disappeared out of thin air. The Justice League and the Avengers, against the three celestials who came to judge, the battle that affects the future of the Earth is about to begin. Chapter 587. The war in the heart of the Atlantic has officially begun. Doctor Strange and Spider-Man disappeared together with a god. Bang! Superman Clark's body of steel hit the biggest god from bottom to top. He pressed his hands and shoulders against the land block-like body. And with the full burst of Krypton's peak combat power, he actually pushed the tens of thousands of meters of gods in near space away from the cosmic region where the Earth is located. In an instant, only a 40,000-meter tall god remained in the near space of the Earth. Judgment. The cold sound falling from the sky resounded in the ears and hearts of everyone in the hinterland of the Atlantic Ocean. The gaze cast by the god's golden electronic eyes was devoid of any emotion. The 40,000-meter tall metal body stood motionless over the Atlantic Ocean. Just look at his clenched right fist swinging down, the clouds in the sky are gone, and the end of the fist is filled with blazing flames, like a meteorite with a diameter of several kilometers falling. God has no killing intent. It's like seeing a few ants eating candy in your own home, and without hesitation reaching out to try to crush them to death. Boom! The giant meteorite-like fist crashed down, wrapped in flames and strong winds. Before it could fall completely, waves were already rising from the ocean below. It was just a punch, but it seemed like it was going to kill all the creatures in this sea area. This scene can be called divine punishment. Cyborg's electronic eyes stared intently at the giant fists that kept falling over him, and shouted loudly, "Superman and the others have delayed the rest of the gods for us, we must get rid of this god. I'll stop it, and you'll find an opportunity to attack." The blue cloak moved huntingly, and Martian Manhunter flew into the sky without hesitation, crossing his arms in front of himself to block the god's punch. The god's fist collided with the Martian Manhunter's body. Boom! Thousands of meters above the ocean, strong winds stirred, the air burst, and a shock wave swept outward. Ah! The giant fist of the god continued to press down a little, and the Martian Manhunter underneath gritted his teeth and tried his best to support it with his body, and finally stopped the fist 500 meters in the air. Die! Cyborg then flew past the airspace behind Martian Manhunter. Tactical missiles were launched from the mechanical body and carpet-bombed along the arm of the god. Not only that. Cyborg also controlled all the aircraft carriers and warships in the area of the Atlantic Ocean, causing these aircraft carriers and warships to all launch missiles to bomb the airspace where the gods came to the Earth. Because the gods are too large, they do not need precise strikes. Boo-hoo-hoo. I saw various types of missiles swarming in from all directions, densely surrounding the 40,000-meter tall body of the God of Heaven. The fire instantly swallowed up a section of the body of the God of God that came to the Earth. On the other side, New York City. A 30,000-meter tall god descended from space. When its feet landed in the center of New York City, the buildings, foundations, viaducts, subways, etc. were all destroyed. Buzz. The earth shook, and the shock wave carrying dust waves shattered a large number of glass products in New York. The originally modern and fashionable New York was immediately reduced to a scene of doomsday ruins. On the edge of New York City, above the roof of an intact skyscraper, Doctor Strange and Spider-Man are here. Don't worry, this is a mirror space, there is no one else but us. Doctor Strange looked at the tragic situation ahead and said. There is no one else, this is actually not good news, Spider-Man smiled bitterly. He squatted on the ground and kept raising his head. His body almost turned over, and he could not see the whole body of the god. 30,000 meters, what is the concept? The tallest building in New York is only over 500 meters tall. The driving height of ordinary commercial aircraft is only more than 10,000 meters. The 30,000-meter tall god stands in the center of New York, as if he were standing inside a model toy. His giant body with his knees up is submerged in the clouds, and his hands, feet and torso can be seen as islands, icebergs, or even land masses. Although he has completely descended to the earth, he is still aloof. From the high altitude above the clouds, several rays of golden light shine down. It is the god looking down, which makes people feel fear from the bottom of their hearts. Oh my god, this is too big. Spider-Man was numb and felt that his phobia of giants had been violated. Mr. Strange, do we really want to fight this thing? Said at the same time. The gods who came to New York City in the mirror space have also noticed the two Spider-Man. He stood there without moving. He just reached out with his palm and passed through more than a dozen streets, casting a shadow over the city. Mr. Strange. Spider-Man was really frightened. He had always been dexterous in the city, but now he could not escape the grasp of the gods. Doctor Strange said nothing, and suddenly pressed his hands down. The next moment, the central city of New York where the gods stood collapsed, and the spatial pattern began to twist and change, like a giant urban sand dune, sinking the 30,000-meter-high god into it. Doctor Strange kept his seal gesture and said in a deep voice, "With just the two of us, we can't fight him, it would be great to trap him and delay it." Soon, most of the god's body was submerged in the collapsed city, leaving only a complete metal head and half of his shoulders and hands exposed. Even so, it was better than a giant metal mountain. Boom! Boom! The gods landed their hands on the edge of New York City, and countless building foundations were directly destroyed, trying to break free from the city that collapsed like a sand dune. "I'll help." Seeing that Doctor Strange seemed very exhausted and unable to move, Spider-Man immediately gritted his teeth and actively moved the spider silk towards the location of the gods. Outside, in the real world, in the heart of the Atlantic Ocean, the billowing smoke covered the sky again. Did it succeed? Cyborg remained in the air, looking straight up at the sky above the ocean. At that moment, the missiles consumed came from aircraft carriers or warships of more than a dozen countries, which was more amazing than a modern naval battle. Cyborg thought, just like he couldn't kill the gods, at least he could injure them, right? "Cyborg, be careful." The angry words of the Martian hunter suddenly sounded. Ha! A hurricane suddenly dispersed the smoke in the sky, and another giant palm swung down towards the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. Damn it! Facing the approaching giant metal hand, Cyborg roared and fired tactical missiles continuously, but it was just like tickling an itch, unable to stop the giant hand from falling like judgment. 1,000 meters, 500 meters. It seemed that the giant hand was about to bury Cyborg and the Batfighter together. A young man in a battle suit suddenly flew up, and like the Martian hunter just now, he used his body to resist the palm of the god's hand from hitting him. The Eternals are finished. The strongest of the Eternals, Icaris, shouted hoarsely, crying while desperately resisting the giant palm of the god. Even he didn't know why he took action, this was walking on the opposite side of the Creator. Chapter 588. Cyborg couldn't help but be stunned when he saw this. Unexpectedly, Icaris, who had previously fought Superman, would suddenly switch sides and help them. "Don't give up, Cyborg." At this time, Batman's voice also sounded from the communicator. The Bat-fighter plane pulled away to a certain distance and continued to bombard the god in the sky. "I see." Cyborg took a deep breath. This time, he covered the global tactical guidance network with his consciousness. "Let's come together too." Circe, the former Eternal, waved her hand and led other Eternal members on the island into the battle against the gods. "Isn't he so high up? Drag him down from the sky." Martian Manhunter growled, holding the god's giant fist. Martian Manhunter exploded with all his strength, and this time he did not push the god upwards, but in turn, pulled the god down to the ocean below. Icaris seemed to understand its meaning. He struggled to hold the god's other hand, and kept pulling downwards while exerting force. Immediately, the god who originally only stretched out his hands to attack the earth, turned his whole body upside down, was pulled and submerged into the earth, and his head was hit hard on the crater of the island. With a bang, the island collapsed. At the same time, the all-out attacks of the Justice League and the Eternals, as well as Cyborg's use of all guided fire attacks within the strike range on Earth, also followed. This day, countless humans can see numerous ultra-long-range missiles piercing the sky and flying toward the hinterland of the Atlantic Ocean when they look up. That seems to represent the Earth's full declaration of war against the Creator God. Boom! The sky is burning and the sea is evaporating. The flames of various attacks and missile explosions once again covered the gods falling from the sky. Not enough, this level of blow is not enough. Cyborg roared, and he could see the giant body still resisting under the strong firepower. Every move caused tsunamis and shock waves. However, now he has used all the available missile firepower within the effective strike range of the Earth. Laugh. But at this moment, the huge tsunami that was set off suddenly stopped suddenly, and then strangely slapped towards the god of heaven. That's. Cyborg looked down with his electronic eyes, and was surprised to find that the lights and shadows of many ultramodern submarine spacecraft appeared under the sea. It's the army of the Atlantis Empire. Attack. The new queen of Atlantis, the acting queen, waved her hand. The next moment, thousands of undersea spaceships launched laser strikes at the 40,000-meter-tall giant god. The other side. A large laser beam, which was like a beam of light, fell from space and hit the body of the god. Space. Cyborg was stunned. At this time, the area of space near the Earth. A sword-shaped giant alien spacecraft released its stealth mode, and there was a sword logo on the cold metal shell. In the cockpit of this sword-shaped spacecraft, a one-eyed black man stood with his hands behind his back. "Go on, hit the target," Nick Fury said in a deep voice. The extraordinary power of the Justice League and the Eternals. Cyborg coordinates the cutting-edge missile firepower of Earth's ordinary forces. Coupled with Atlantis, the Skyward Sword Force was hit by a laser offensive. The 40,000 tall body of the god who was pulled from the sky into the Atlantic Ocean continued to tremble, and his resistance and struggle began to weaken, until he lay completely motionless on the ocean. Even if he was lying down, his back still emerged from the sea, like a relatively flat metal land plate fault. Succeeded. The semi-mechanized cyborg kept panting. Looking at the fallen 40,000 god, he was so excited that he wanted to shout loudly. "No way, we really killed the gods." Ikaris, Circe, and other members of the Eternals floated on the sea, looking in disbelief at the scarred body of the god lying in front of him. "If we can win, we can probably win." The Martian Manhunter flying in the sky clenched his fist vigorously. Batman Bruce in the Batfighter, Nick Fury on the Skyward Sword spacecraft, the Queen of Atlantis under the sea, etc. Many people let out a little breath. Although it was very difficult, they still defeated a god. Next, just take the other two gods. The people who were fighting against the gods on the scene could not wait to relax. A shadow suddenly covered the hinterland of the Atlantic Ocean, and an ominous premonition emerged from everyone's heart. Mirror space. Spider-Man removed the nanometal hood of the spider suit, stuck out his tongue and gasped like a dog, and almost collapsed on the roof of an intact building. Ahead. In the center of New York City, which is sunken like a sand dune, tens of thousands of densely packed white special spider silk stick the gods to the sunken buildings. As a result, the movement of the god slowed down, and his entire head sank in, trapped in the distorted mirror space of New York City. "Well done, Peter." The blue cloak fluttered, and Dr. Strange slowly fell next to Spider-Man. "Mr. Strange, are we successful?" Spider-Man asked weakly, almost out of strength. "The mirror space can only trap him for 10 minutes at most." Dr. Strange shook his head and said, "The most important thing is the battlefield outside." "What's the situation on the battlefield outside now?" Spider-Man asked. Dr. Strange raised his hand, and the space next to him began to feel glassy, and the scene of the Atlantic Ocean outside gradually emerged. Spider-Man hurriedly stood up and looked over. When he saw the giant god lying on the ocean, he couldn't help but wave his fist excitedly. "They got rid of a god over there. I have eyes, it seems to be true." Dr. Strange nodded and couldn't help but smile. However, as if sensing something, the smile on Dr. Strange's face froze. "What is that?" Spider-Man also stopped all his movements and stared blankly at the sky above the Atlantic Ocean. Outside, the battlefield in the Atlantic Ocean. Everyone was stunned, their brains were empty, and they looked up at the sky. Above. A new god appeared there, no, not one, but three. 350,000 tall gods, side by side, stretched across the sky, like three metal giants, blocking all the sunlight. Several cold golden eyes fell, calmly scanning everything below. "Really?" Cyborg took a breath. "How many gods are there in the other three?" Martian Manhunter also felt powerless. Gods really can't be offended. The members of the Eternals began to feel desperate. "What should I do? How should I fight this?" Batman Bruce, Nick Fury and others racked their brains, but it was difficult to find a war strategy to deal with it. The gap between the enemy and us is too big. A god is a single universe-level strongman, and they are like mass-produced giant robots. I don't know how many there are in the universe. God group. This is simply a dimensionality reduction attack on the creatures of the universe. In despair, depression, and fear, the three gods continued to judge. The power of the second batch of gods is obviously stronger than the previous gods. The thoughts that are condensed into reality interweave and fall, and then they turn into a real circular energy ring in the air. Locking the Eternals, the Justice League and others in the sea below. The next moment. All the Eternals including Ikaris and Circe, the Martian Manhunter, Cyborg, and Batman of the Justice League, more than a dozen people were all locked by the golden energy ring, flew out of the earth and hovered in front of the three near-space gods. Unable to resist. Just when Cyborg and others felt desperate, the three gods suddenly raised their eyes and looked at the inner part of the earth behind the group. Visible. A stream of red light cut through the sky from bottom to top and stopped in the space behind the group of people on Earth. In the dark space, the scarlet fire was dazzling and scorching. This feeling is. Cyborg's electronic eyes flashed red, and his semi-mechanical body trembled with excitement. It's him, he's back. Chapter 589. The 350,000 high celestial beings suspended in the near space of the Earth lowered their gazes. Together with the Eternals, the Justice League, and others who were about to be judged, they all looked at the red stream of light that cut through the sky from within the Earth. The stream of light stopped near everyone and finally revealed his figure. He was a young man who looked to be in his 20s. He had a delicate face, a tall body, and his exposed muscles were as perfect as an assembly line. The scarlet flame, which was not affected at all in the universe, burned from the inside out of his body, and his eyes also overflowed, making everyone's souls feel burning. The scarlet flame seemed to burn itself out, so that the young man's entire body became transparent. The flame outlined an S-shaped totem on his chest, and continued to rotate outside the body surface. He is. Ikaris, Circe, and other Eternals had strange looks in their eyes, sensing energy so powerful that it was obvious to them. It's really him. Cyborg was so excited that he couldn't control himself, and his semi-mechanized body was shaking constantly. He was too familiar with the image of the young man. It is almost exactly the same as the image of turning the tide on Apocalypse and defeating Darkseid. While Martian Manhunter and Batman were pleasantly surprised, they also recalled some bad memories. They had fought against the out-of-control state of the current mode, which was much more desperate than the war with the gods. Of course, what they didn't know was that they were only playing the magical Superman mode. That's right, the existence that suddenly appeared was Nian Prince in Super Red mode. He is Nian Prince. Ikaris and Circe looked at each other and naturally knew each other's deeds on Earth. The other party was even more like a myth than they were. In the universe. Like a young man formed from scarlet flames, he had no entity, motionless and stagnant in the air, his eyes dull. No, something's not right. Martian Manhunter saw some clues and did not feel the slightest breath of life from the other party. How so? The steel-framed electronic eyes trembled slightly in surprise, and the scan revealed that the young man really had no entity, but was a creation of scarlet fusion energy. The other party is indeed the image of Nian in Super Red mode, but it is just an empty shadow, like a shadow cast from some other distant place. At this time, the main hall of the New York Temple in the mirror space. Looking at the sight of the outside world and the young figure appearing in near space, Spider-Man, who had removed his nanohood, also showed a shocked expression. Just now, at the moment when the three gods from the outside world appeared, Doctor Strange took him to the New York Temple in the current mirror space, and unsealed the big cauldron that had been placed at the corner of the stairs on the first floor. The next moment, the scarlet young figure leaped out from the mouth of the cauldron, directly breaking through the barrier between mirror space and reality and reaching the outer space. Mr. Strange, what on earth is that? Spider-Man was stunned, his eyes never leaving the young man's scarlet figure. Isn't it your cousin-in-law? I don't even know him. What? Spider-Man jumped up from the ground in excitement, still shouting in disbelief. No way, he is really back. All right. Doctor Strange felt a little sorry to see Spider-Man so excited. He stepped forward and patted him on the shoulder and said, "Don't get too excited, that is not me." "It's not me, what do you mean?" Spider-Man was stunned again, couldn't help scratching his head and looked at Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange looked at the mirror on the side of the main hall reflecting the scene of the outside world, and stared at the familiar scarlet young man's back with some emotion. That was a magic energy clone that the second-generation Supreme Mage left here 2 years ago before he left this world. The moment this energy clone was formed, it was sealed and left in the cauldron of all things. It was not until today that it finally unseal. That is the only backup he has left in this world. This trump card will only be revealed when the Earth is about to survive. After hearing what Doctor Strange said, Spider-Man couldn't help but clenched his fists and sighed. Is there a backup plan left by the elder brother? Spider-Man sincerely feels that his eldest brother has always been ahead of all superheroes. Even if I leave this world, I will still stand in front of them, facing the High God. An afterimage. The three gods, who were like robots without any emotion, were all looking at the young man's energy shadow indifferently. The will and energy that were previously condensed into reality are invisibly circulating in the universe. The next moment, 3 golden energy wheels appeared out of thin air, locking the scarlet young man's shadow. Laugh. However, the next moment the 3 golden energy wheels were formed, the scarlet energy on the young man's projection suddenly burst out, and the chaotic magic power burned the 3 golden energy wheels like red flames. At the same time, the young shadow stagnant in the universe finally made some moves. The young man's shadow actually rushed directly towards the middle god, and his eyes shot out two scarlet lightnings in a Z-shaped trajectory. Along the way, the scarlet lightning will imprison the golden energy wheels of the Eternals, the Justice League and others. After breaking through, he continued to follow the young man towards the other two gods without any stagnation. Let's go. Ikari's reacted very quickly. After the golden energy wheel was cracked, he immediately fled away with Cersei and the rest of the Eternals. Cyborg and Martian Manhunter did the same, each holding one of Batman's arms and leading the other back to Earth. Behind them, three giant 50-meter tall gods fought with the shadow of a human youth less than 2 meters tall. The idea of the Eternals, such as Ikari's and Cersei, was very simple. In their view, no matter how strong Nian Prince was, what he left behind was just a spell energy clone, which could only delay time at most. Whoosh! Batman was dragged back to the height of 1,000 meters below the earth by his companions. Qing's chin finally turned red. He hurriedly grabbed Cyborg and Martian Manhunter on both sides with his backhand, and shouted rationally. Don't worry about me, you go help Nian's projection clone. If we can't defeat the gods, it's useless for us to escape to anywhere. But Cyborg and Martian Manhunter were hesitating, but heard a bang from the top of the dome, and a shadow approached down. Batman opened his eyes in astonishment. That is, how is it possible? The fleeing Eternals looked back and saw the scene in the sky, and they were all stunned. But they saw. A 50-meter tall god fell straight down. His metal body was full of traces of tiny lightning strikes, and the crackling scarlet lightning lingered on his body's surface, and he had lost all his movement. In less than 5 seconds, a god was defeated. And the opponent was just an energy clone of a human, and it was a 3-on-1 situation. Chapter 590. Seeing the Celestials fall down in defeat. Eternals such as Ikari's and Cersei suddenly couldn't accept it. That was a Celestial, the Creator Celestial. Beings that could create planets with their bare hands stood at the top of this universe. Although each Celestial was not as powerful as the Supreme Celestial, they were undoubtedly single-universe powers, almost above all creatures in the current universe. And such a Creator Celestial, who had been their master and brought them despair, lost one in less than 5 seconds. How could we accept this? It should be said that he is worthy of it, even the projection clone is equally amazing. Cyborg smiled bitterly. Cyborg, take Bruce down, Martian Manhunter said in a deep voice. I will hold him, and we can't let him fall like this. The Celestial was too huge. That 50-meter body, even if it fell unconsciously, would be a disaster for the Earth. That size and weight, you can't handle it, Batman spoke quickly. If you can't catch it, you can only try, or you can slow down the falling speed. Mars Hunter said resolutely. Whoosh! But at this moment, a gentleman in a blue cloak appeared in the sky above the ocean. He looked up and saw the body of the god falling like a huge meteorite, and he could not help but quickly circle his left hand with his right hand. A Mars portal immediately glowed above his head, expanding at a geometric speed, and finally formed a Mars portal with a radius of 10,000 meters. However, the radius of 10,000 meters was not enough. Bang! Mars Hunter and Ikari's flew high again, and the two of them worked together to flip the falling body of the god, just enough to make the body of the god fall into the portal vertically. When the body of the god completely sank into the portal, Doctor Strange immediately released the portal, and the consumption was probably so huge that his face turned much paler. Hoo-hoo! Doctor Strange panted rapidly and looked up at the sky. He could see two phantom-like metal humanoids fighting with a scarlet human figure that was hard to see. It's up to you, Sorcerer Supreme. He said in his heart. Outer space on Earth. The sword-shaped spaceship of the S. was suspended in the universe. Nick Fury in the cockpit looked shocked, watching the remaining two giants and the Scarlet Streamer fighting in the vast universe. Silently. Only the dazzling golden and scarlet light was constantly glowing, and the consciousness formed a shocking force field that controlled the laws of physics. The surging energy fluctuation swept through the universe and rushed out very far. He was the first to kill a god through himself and the Omega Effect Ray. The super red mode of Nian's spell energy projection clone, the burning and lingering scarlet fire could not help but dim a little. Another god stretched out his palm towards the young man's phantom, covering a space area of several thousand meters at once. The young man's phantom immediately punched forward stiffly and swiftly. The fist landed on the giant palm with an extremely different size, but it shook the 50-meter tall god back. ZZ. The eyes of the Xinyan energy clone burst out two parallel lightnings again, and it flew forward at a very fast speed, and turned into a scarlet human-shaped lightning and rushed towards the god. Three scarlet lights cut through the dark interstellar space, annihilating all energy and destroying all matter. Puff! The giant metal head was bombarded and pierced, and the god fell backwards. The Xinyan clone dimmed again, but became more and more courageous, like a cluster of small flames, and rushed directly to the last god. Each god is indeed a strong man at the level of a single universe. In a single universe, it is the strongest as Odin said. But the super red mode itself is the bug mode that Xinyan broke the rules of the universe in the late period. The strength of the gods is at the level of a single universe, and that is the only height they can reach. The reason why the super red mode is still listed at the level of a single universe is that there is an insurmountable bottleneck between it and the multiverse level. The super red mode is invincible in the multiverse. Darkseid's clone was defeated in this mode. At this moment, even if it is just a spell energy projection, it has 80 of the strength of the super red mode, and the strength of the super red mode is there. Killing the gods, just right. 3 minutes later. 250,000 meter tall gods floated tightly in the universe. Because they were some distance away from the Earth during the subsequent fierce battle. They were not gravity-driven like the first god, which saved Doctor Strange and the Justice League from tossing. The super red mode Xinyan spell energy clone burst into scarlet lightning in his eyes, and then he reached forward with his right hand and held the lightning in his hand like a long sword. That was a 1,000-meter-long scarlet lightning sword. The red young man's phantom raised his knife and chopped off the heads of the two giant gods. The bodies of 250,000 meter tall metal giants separated and floated in the outer space visible to Earth civilization. This was a scene that was enough to completely subvert human cognition and was 100 times more shocking than the so-called epic myth. After completing all this, the scarlet flame on the shadow of Xinyan dimmed and almost extinguished, and disappeared completely in the universe. The young shadow turned around and stared at the Earth in front of him, burning the last ray of energy. Over the heart of the Atlantic Ocean. Doctor Strange also raised his eyes, looking at the scarlet figure far away, and murmured to himself sincerely, "Sorcerer Supreme, you have saved the world again. Killing 3 gods, this is incredible." The Eternals trembled from the bottom of their hearts. This is simply a massacre. 3 gods died in a few minutes. This is just a projection clone. It is hard to imagine how strong the real person is. Cyborg stopped in the air, looked at the sky, and laughed. He is really amazing. Every time he appears, even if it is a clone projection, he will bring miracles. Yes. Batman, with one hand on Cyborg's shoulder, nodded. But at this moment, the battle situation in the starry sky changed again. Pop! A giant metal pillar, which is larger than the body of the god, suddenly stretched out from the depths of the vast universe and fell on the projection clone of Xinyan at an unimaginable speed. In just a moment. After Ganger killed the energy clone of the 3 gods, it was like a colorful bubble that was extinguished with a poke, and the scarlet flame was completely annihilated in the universe. Although the projection clone itself was about to dissipate on its own. What is that? Doctor Strange, Martian Manhunter and others looked up in shock, and it was difficult to catch their breath under the invisible pressure. In the universe. The huge metal pillar was retracted. No, it was not a giant metal pillar, but just a finger. That's right, a finger is bigger than the body of a 50,000 meter tall god. A humanoid metal existence that is almost the same size as the Earth is suspended in the space near the Earth, and his face casts 6 golden eyes downward. His face instantly becomes the sky pattern of the Atlantic Ocean. All the Earth humans who see it are trembling with fear. The Supreme of the Celestials, arisen. Circe of the Eternals is pale, and despair is revealed in her eyes. That is the strongest existence of the Celestials, and it is he who created the first sun and brought light to this universe. He is the origin of all creation and the end of all destruction. Chapter 591. The giant metal face casting golden pupils like the sun downwards became the background of the starry sky over the Atlantic Ocean, and even the hemisphere of the sky facing the sun was shrouded by the giant body. His body can be compared with the Earth with a radius of more than 600 kilometers. At first glance, it looks like a metal robot-shaped planet fixed in the sky near the Earth. When all humans saw this scene, their scalps became numb and their bodies trembled uncontrollably, stemming from genetic fear. The Supreme God Group. Ikaris, Circe, and other Eternals turned pale, and without the slightest thought of resistance, they all knelt down on the remaining rocks in the Atlantic Ocean. Unlike other members of the Celestial Group, they can be dropped into newborn planets and produce unlimited quantities of food over a long period of time. The Supreme God Group is a unique existence. He is the earliest God existence. He can mobilize all members of the God group and has the authority to judge all things in the universe. His decision, that is, the decision of the God group, will also be a factor in the future of the planet and universe. Arism, the supreme god of the group of gods, appears. The planetary civilization in the region of the universe is like a prisoner, being taken to the trial stand, waiting for the other party to knock the gavel of death. Suddenly teleported from the black hole and appeared in the near space of the Earth. The metal face of the supreme Alism of the celestial god group was expressionless. After extinguishing the energy clone left by the super-red mode Nian, the pupils of the golden sun shine down. Earth within. The focus falls on the hinterland of the Atlantic Ocean, the 40,000-meter god lying prone in the Atlantic waters, and the embryonic seed of the god that was frozen and stopped appearing after less than half of its hatching. As well as the Eternals and others who just rebelled against the gods. Under the gaze, everything is silent. Hateful. Martian Manhunter gritted his teeth, clenched his fists and rushed towards the starry sky, determined to fight to the death for the current Earth. Martian Manhunter. Cyborg, who was stuck in the low altitude with Batman, screamed, but in the next moment, he was stagnant in the air together with Martian Manhunter, who was flying 1,000 meters above. This is. Martian Manhunter struggled for a moment, looked down, and saw a golden energy ring clasping its body. Buzz. The members of the Justice League and Eternals who had previously escaped from outer space were once again locked tightly by the golden energy wheel that appeared out of thin air. And they could not move no matter how hard they tried or used their abilities. It's not just them. In the hinterland area of the Atlantic Ocean, which was previously used as the battlefield of the gods, the soldiers of the Atlantis forces, Doctor Strange, and even the reporters filming the news were all locked in place by a golden energy wheel. Earth space. In the Skyward Sword Bureau's spaceship, Nick Fury in the cockpit and all the staff on the spacecraft are also locked by the golden energy wheel. At the same time, far away in the city of Washington on the other side of the Atlantic, Mr. and Mrs. George were sitting on the sofa in front of the TV. Watching the news report just now, and they were also looking at the energy wheel surrounding their bodies in horror. In a lakeside cabin on the outskirts of New York, Tony Stark was kissing his wife and daughter goodbye. Planning to put on the steel suit again and go to war. As a result, the family was also locked by a golden energy wheel that emerged out of thin air. How is it possible? The second-generation Ant-Man looked at the golden energy wheel that locked himself, and finally pressed the shrink button on his hand with difficulty. But the moment his body shrank into an ant, the golden energy wheel also shrank with him. Gotham, Metropolis, London, Paris, Berlin, Wakanda. Globally, all over the world. Whether inside or outside the house. Starry sky and sky, land, or seabed. At this moment, all advanced creatures living on the Earth, whether human or undersea people, were locked by a golden energy wheel lock and stagnated in place. Spider-Man, who was still in the mirror space temple, looked at the outside scene reflected in the mirror in horror. Humanity around the world is locked in a golden energy wheel at this moment and stops in place. At this time, the Bat fighter jet was parked on the sea. In the closed cabin, the Flash, who had been hiding in the dark as a trump card, was inevitably locked by the golden energy wheel. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. This time, it's really broken. He is the last stand-in for the Justice League. When the Earth side completely fails, the Flash will run at full speed, trying to turn back the time of the universe and go back to the past, as a hope of comeback. However, facing the Supreme God group, even if you have this idea, you can't do it. The real Supreme God's attack is no different from a dimensionality reduction attack, killing all hope in an instant. It's over. Doctor Strange sighed. No matter how hard the blue cloak pulled, he could not escape the confinement of the golden energy wheel. Washington, a suburban villa that has been gathering dust for 2 years. Inside the dark and lightless living room, a golden energy wheel also appeared here, as if locking a delicate girl's body. Humph, my father can't trap me, so it's just you. The girl snorted coldly, and the golden energy wheel was gradually swallowed up by the wings that resembled a dark entity. Only. The girl knew very well that her own strength was still far from enough to compete with the supreme god of the universe. If the Earth is destroyed, we can only move this villa to another dimension. The girl sighed inwardly. Except for girls from other dimensional universes and Spider-Man in the mirror space, everyone on Earth is imprisoned by the golden energy wheel. Next, the Earth will be judged. The mechanical and ruthless voice of Supreme Arisam of the God group emerges in the mind of every imprisoned human being. It is determined that the appearance of God has been prevented, affecting the normal order of the universe. Earth's civilization needs to be destroyed. In less than 3 seconds, a conclusion is given. Destroy. The gavel of judgment seemed to hit everyone's heart. At this moment, all mankind was trembling with fear and despair. The superhero wanted to resist, but he was also imprisoned and couldn't even move. Destruction, destruction, destruction. The moment the judgment was concluded, the Supreme God Group seemed to be about to take action and execute the results of the judgment. No, no, no. Spider-Man in the mirror space was trembling with anxiety, but there was nothing he could do. Even if he could get out, he would be locked by the golden energy wheel in the next moment. And the mirror space is constantly shaking and shattering, and the god trapped in it is about to escape. No one knows. At the same time that the Supreme God Group judged the destruction of the Earth. In the dark universe, a voice suddenly sounded directly in the vacuum area. "Why, I just came back, and this is the scene." The voice sounded helpless and casual. "It's so lively today, and even a guest from Earth didn't even call me." This small voice sounded not only in the ears of the supreme gods, but also in the minds of everyone on Earth. Chapter 592. Fortunately, it seems, I caught up. When the mysterious unknown voice said this. The next moment. The golden energy wheel that imprisoned all mankind all ignited strangely, igniting a colorful strange flame. Washington, a villa in the suburbs. Inside the house. The girl who was about to move the entire villa out of the earth suddenly stopped when she heard the sound, and then a crystal flash fell from her fair face. This voice. In the heart of the Atlantic Ocean. Doctor Strange, the Justice League and others were stunned, and then their hearts beat excitedly. There is no mistake, this voice is. Mirror Space, New York Temple. Looking at the space mirror above the cauldron of all things, which feeds back the scene of the Earth's near space in real time, Spider-Man's eyes widened little by little, and his mouth gradually turned into an O shape. Brother. Gotham, Metropolis, Washington. It's him. Many people who recognized the voice opened their eyes in doubt, overflowing with hope and excitement. Even, including rats, humanoid sharks, seabed weirdos, and all kinds of strange non-human creatures. Of course, for them, that person is also a different identity. But no matter what, there is only one thing that is beyond doubt. The strongest. At this time, the outer space universe of the Earth. The Supreme of the God Group, Alism, slowly turned around and saw the figure that appeared in the vast universe behind him. It was a young and handsome human youth, exactly the same as the burning red energy phantom before, but it was the real deity. The other party was wearing a seemingly ordinary dark red windbreaker, dusty, as if he had just rushed back here from somewhere else. At this moment, the black-haired young man was looking at him casually. The difference in size between the two sides is simply incomparable. Just like no one would compare the size with the Earth, because it is meaningless. However, the black-haired young man did not show any fear. Although the other party is indeed ridiculously large, it is not unheard of to have a stronger existence in the multiverse. I just came back and heard a little bit. Who are you standing here to judge? Across hundreds of kilometers, the black-haired young man calmly faced the Supreme of the Celestial Gods, as if he was facing a planet. Nian Prince. The Supreme of the Celestial Gods, Alism. Sent out a thought, and then stretched out a giant metal palm that was enough to create or crush a planet with bare hands. He raised his hand and instantly crossed hundreds of kilometers of space, covering a large area of the universe and grabbed it in his palm. A black hole then exploded and swallowed it with the palm as the center. Swish. A series of colorful lights shone from the fingers of the Supreme of the Celestial Gods. The colorful light beams directly penetrated the formed black hole. As the giant arm of the Supreme of the Celestial Gods continued to tremble. The 5 metal fingers were forcibly stretched open by the colorful light, and the entire metal palm was shattered on a large scale and ushered in annihilation. So you still know me. The young man emerged from the constantly broken metal wreckage. His hair color was still black, but there was a colorful energy crown on his head, and his eyes turned bright and burning. He was wearing a silver-plated battle suit made of vibranium metal, with a golden flame of an S-shaped totem burning on his chest, a green spider mark on his shoulder, and a dark red cloak wrapped in scarlet flames falling backwards. No one held back. The newly returned Nian has already stimulated the 5 top abilities in his body, namely Scarlet Magic, Krypton Superman, Vibranium Vision, God's Power, and Spider Physique, and entered the multidimensional level. Under the multidimensional, everything is empty. Even the Supreme of the God Group, Alism, cannot directly touch the current mode. After all, this is also a dimensionality reduction attack. Before the multidimensional Nian made a move, the multidimensional energy overflowing from the single body crippled one of the hands of the Supreme of the God Group. The Supreme of the Celestial God Group, Alism, paused for a moment, and judged that the opponent was an unbeatable opponent. His body turned into a black hole and was about to leave. Since you are here, don't leave. Nian snapped his fingers, as if he was wearing the infinite gloves of 6 infinite gems, and this piece of space was fixed by him. The supreme of the celestial god group, Alizum, stopped in place. So that's how it is. Nian's colorful eyes moved, looking at the supreme of the celestial god group, and directly saw through everything about the other party. So, you are a robot with the strength at the peak level of a single universe, Nian understood. The celestial god group was originally all robots, so they could be infinitely reproduced and mass-produced. However, the energy required for these robots to act was too huge. So they dropped the so-called embryo seeds, which was equivalent to charging on the planet. When they were full of energy, they would become a celestial god, which could last for billions of years. It is precisely because they are essentially robots that they have eternal life. You also come from the multiverse, from some multiverse forces. Multiverse Nian had this idea when he created the inner civilization of the devouring dimension. That is, his own universe is also the existence of other multiverse outside worlds, which came in early to create and establish. From this point of view, the Celestials are not wrong, they are indeed the peacemakers who maintain the universe. It is like the position of Stark, the starfish who maintains the daily order of the devouring dimension in the devouring dimension. However, the two have different positions. Anyway, when the Celestials declared the destruction of the Earth and tried to wipe out all mankind and civilization, the Earth stood on the opposite side of the Celestials. And Nian is an Earthling. This separate universe will be my multiverse from now on. As soon as Nian finished speaking, the entire body of the Celestial Supreme in front of him began to burn, and the blazing colorful flames covered his head and limbs from his chest. Soon, the Celestial Supreme, as huge as a planet, burned without even ashes left. Also burning were the half-hatched celestial embryos frozen in the earth and the 40,000-meter celestial trapped in the mirror space. They were like being wiped out of thin air, and the colorful flames did not affect other creatures or substances. It's over. In the heart of the Atlantic Ocean, Doctor Strange and others stared blankly at the ocean and the bottom layer that had been wiped out and repaired by the Celestials. This magical power to wipe out the Celestials and change the world is even more powerful than the Creator. Colorful light flashed. A tall and sacred figure appeared in the air next to Doctor Strange. I say, Strange, I haven't seen you for 2 years, and you are still so unreliable, the colorful young man appeared and complained. Mr. Nian, the Supreme Sorcerer, Doctor Strange opened his arms excitedly when he saw the young man. Don't come on, I just want the girl to welcome me softly, you better forget it. Nian glanced at Doctor Strange with disdain, fixed him in place, waved his hand and said, the rest of the tale, leave it to you to deal with. I just came back and have to meet some people, see you in a few days. After that, the colorful light flashed, and Nian disappeared from the air again. Left behind, Doctor Strange with a messy face in the wind. He touched his nose awkwardly, and sighed sincerely, it was really this guy's usual style. Chapter 593. Above the Multiverse. In the endless void of the universe, a golden giant hangs. He has 3 solemn and sacred faces, his golden body is unimaginably large, and there are countless single-universe shadows suspended around his body. At this time, as if sensing something, a golden pupil overflowed from one of the faces of the golden giant. The celestial group in the XSY 886 universe was destroyed, and multiple levels of transcendent beings appeared there. Is it necessary to rearrange the presence of the celestial gods to restore the order of the universe? Justice, need, revenge. As if as the manager of these cosmic worlds, the golden giant is thinking, and his will sweeps outwards into the multiverse. Soon. The golden giant received several messages and reconsidered and evaluated again. Nian Prince has endless family endorsement and a platform to transcend. From now on, the celestial group will no longer be sent to the XSY 886 universe, and all permission rights for the universe will be transferred to Nian Prince. After making the assessment, the golden giant closed its eyes again and continued to sleep for the next multidimensional era. XSY 886 American Comic Universe, Earth. The sun is still shining and the world is at peace. If it hadn't been for the appearance of a huge human-shaped metal island in the Atlantic Ocean, it would have seemed like nothing had happened before. When Superman finished dealing with the celestial robot that first arrived, he quickly returned to Earth panting. What he saw was the Atlantic battlefield where the war had ended, and he looked a little confused. What happened here? Superman looked at the Justice League and others at the scene in confusion. Have you taken care of all the remaining gods? Only after fighting against the gods did I understand how difficult those guys were. In the end, Superman pushed the god into the sun and lined up with the sun to kill the god. The rest of the Justice League members looked at each other and smiled, and Cyborg among them even grinned and said, Clark, your cousin-in-law is back. Brother-in-law. Superman Clark was stunned for a moment, then suddenly opened his eyes wide and looked in the direction of the city of Washington. Washington, suburban house. Tread. A colorful figure emerged out of thin air and landed on the steps in front of the villa, blowing the dust waves away to reveal a clean area. It's still the same here. The young man in the cloak whispered to himself, and all the colorful energy rays on his body converged back like water threads, returning to the normal appearance of an ordinary human being. Almost as soon as he regained his normalcy, he reached for the closed door of the villa. With a click, the door of the villa was opened from the inside out, and a petite black figure that had not changed at all from 2 years ago crashed into the young man's arms. You're really here all the time, Raven. Nian smiled slightly and supported the girl's petite body, which was as weightless as a feather. I always do what I say. The girl looked up, her eyes under the black hood were dark and translucent, flowing with moisture. If you don't come back, I will stay here until I die and curse you for the rest of my life. Her words were crisp and firm, more like passionate emotions than curses. How to repay this feeling? Nian didn't think too much, lowered his head and kissed the girl gently. Fortunately, I'm back, I will never leave again. Ugh. The Raven was unexpected, but had no intention of resisting. His eyelashes trembled slightly and he closed his eyes. Find an opportunity and take me to meet your father, Nian said with a smile. Okay, Raven was silent for a moment, then nodded, tears falling from her fair face. 1 day passed. Things about the Battle of the Gods yesterday began to ferment in full swing, and the internet was full of discussions and heated discussions about the final heroes of this battle, that is, the Justice League. But Batman, the leader of the Justice League, said that someone else saved the battle. As for who it is, perhaps only a few people know it, and that will also be the ultimate secret of this world. And today is Christmas. Noon. Washington, Sheriff George and his family. Sheriff George and Lady Mary, as well as Aunt May and Peter Parker, arrived early to prepare for the family dinner. This time, 6 family tables and chairs were prepared as usual. Mary and May were in the kitchen preparing meals. Peter Parker seemed to be holding back his words, covering his mouth tightly and sitting in the corner of the sofa in the living room. What's wrong with this child? Sheriff George glanced at him in surprise. Just as he was about to pick up the newspaper and read it, he found that the window was completely white and it had started to snow lightly. Snowflakes are falling, giving the modern city outside a silvery look. Ding dong. At this time, the doorbell suddenly rang at the door. Who's here? Mary poked her head out of the kitchen curiously. Maybe it's some guys from the bureau, I'll go take a look. Sheriff George put down the newspaper and walked towards the door. Who? Opening the door, when George saw the people standing outside, the middle-aged police chief with white temples trembled and froze. What, you don't recognize me? Nian outside the door blinked, sighed, and pulled the person next to him. You know this, right? Gwen glanced at Nian unhappily, then smiled and stepped forward and shouted, Dad, we are back. Gwen, oh, my baby girl Gwen. Our Sheriff George was so excited that he trembled all over. He patted Gwen's shoulders and quickly looked up and down at her intact body. It's good to be back, it's good to be back. God, it's Gwen, and Nian. There was a noise in the kitchen, and Mary and May also rushed out excitedly. This time, Peter Parker couldn't help it anymore, and said with a long breath, Brother, why are you here now? I almost can't help it. It was really uncomfortable for him, a chatterbox, to hold back without spoilers. Okay, so you knew they were back a long time ago, and you didn't tell us in advance. May looked at Peter Parker with anger and laughter. Because, Peter Parker looked at Nian and Gwen, and smiled. For the surprise. This time. At the Christmas family lunch banquet, the 6 seats were finally full. After the delicious food and wine. Sheriff George's face, which showed traces of time, was slightly tipsy. He looked at Nian and Gwen who were sitting next to each other with sadness and expectation. You. I understand. Nian said directly. Nian, what do you understand? Gwen was confused. Nian smiled slightly. I came here to formally propose marriage. Hey. Gwen opened her blue eyes wide and was stunned. Nian didn't say this before coming. Nian blinked at her and said, this is the biggest surprise. Chapter 594. After proposing the marriage at Gwen's house. In the afternoon, Nian went to the homes of Superman Clark and Kara's adoptive parents respectively, and arranged for Kara to be there as well. Superman originally had no sympathy for this guy who kidnapped his cousin for 2 years, but seeing Nian sincerely proposing marriage, he still sat down to discuss it as relatives. By the time the discussion was over and they had dinner at Superman's house, the outside was covered in darkness and white snow. Kara, I've been away for 2 years, so you can stay tonight and I can catch up with you, Superman's wife Lois Lane said in a gentle voice. This. Kara looked at Nian, with a few bright blushes still remaining on her pretty face. Kara, you can stay here tonight, Nian smiled slightly and said to Kara. Okay, Kara agreed. Nian, why don't you stay tonight? Let's have a good drink tonight. Nian declined politely. In the evening, there are people waiting for me at home. Anyway, we are a family, I will definitely do it next time. They two men of steel wanted to get drunk, but they probably wouldn't have enough to drink until tomorrow. Okay, Superman Clark didn't force himself. At night, Nian left the Superman family alone, but did not return to the devouring space or the suburban villa. He triggered Kara's Kryptonian superhuman abilities, broke the sound barrier, and soon returned to Washington from Metropolis, arriving at a lakeside park in the city. Just glanced down. Nian quickly found the person he was looking for. When night falls, the brilliance of urban civilization ripples in the lake, and white snow falls from the starry sky. By the lake, next to the park handrail, a tall and perfect female figure wearing a brown woolen coat was leaning there, and white snow fell silently on her white hair and shoulders. Call. Nian descended down to the side, and the strong wind stirred up causing the surrounding white snow to fly all over the sky. Auntie. The corners of Nian's mouth raised slightly, and he gently stroked the white snow off the other party's shoulders, and took off the white snow from his hair. It's Christmas again. The immortal goddess who stepped out of a mythical epic scroll glanced at Nian, and the light in her beautiful eyes softened. Yeah, it's Christmas again. Nian sighed softly and stood next to her aunt, looking together at the quiet lake that was gradually freezing in front of them. This is where the two first met. It is also the place where the two of them must go every year for Christmas. This runs through the lives and memories of the two, as they get to know each other, grow up, trust each other, and become each other's most important person. Nian was born here, which is the starting point of fateful encounter. When he came to the end of his life, Nian also came here and boldly expressed his true feelings to the people in front of him. Now, they have come full circle and are back to where they started. How about taking a walk with me? Wonder Woman Diana gently pulled her hair next to her earlobe and said softly. With pleasure. Nian blinked, bowed like a gentleman, and held the other person's hand. When I say leave, I really just leave. Nian and Diana held hands with each other, walked around the lakeside park, and then went to another forest park. Feeling each other's warmth in the heavy snow. Of course, this is not an aimless walk. Finally, Nian and Diana walked into a forest in a park and stopped in front of a huge tree with no lights. So, you still remember this place, Diana said softly. Nian looked directly at the person in front of him and responded naturally, of course I remember, the moonlight that day was so beautiful. Not serious. Diana's face turned red, she stretched out a long white finger and tapped Nian's forehead. Nian grinned and looked at the big tree in front of him again. How could I forget this place? Here, there is an agreement he and his aunt made in the early years. At that time, because Nian was worried about his lifespan or other unexpected factors, he brought Diana here, and together they planted a secret that they kept from each other. 10 years later, even if one party is no longer alive, the other party must comply with the agreement and come here. At this moment, it is the deadline of the 10-year appointment, and Nian and Diana are back here to keep the appointment. When he came here, Nian was eager to find the secret note that Aunt Diana had buried. To do this, he even used the Kryptonian Superman mode's clairvoyant eyes. Found it, Nian quickly looked to one place, lightly stomped on the ground, and used a force field to draw the glass bottle out. Next to it, golden light flashed. I found your share too. Diana held the exclusive magic weapon lasso of Mantra in her hand. The lasso sank into the earth and rolled up another glass bottle and took it out. Then let's take it apart together. Before Nian finished speaking, he hurriedly crushed the glass bottle to read the secret note written by Diana. What's the rush? Diana's dignified and peaceful temperament was a little difficult to maintain. She blushed slightly, but she quickly opened the glass bottle and took out the secret note. The secret notes in both hands were opened at the same time. Diana saw it and the secret note read, I will never leave you. Nian was stunned, and the note in his hand said, me too, we will be together forever. Aunt, you didn't peek at what I wrote, Nian thought for a moment and complained. No. Diana couldn't help but hit him again. This guy teased her deliberately just to see the shame she showed. At the beginning, Nian thought that even if he died, he would die beside his aunt and crawl back from hell. So, he left this secret note, I will never leave you. And what Diana was thinking at the time was, No matter what decision Nian made, she chose to follow without objection. Even if she died, she would be together, so she wrote, "Me too, together forever." Because, for many years, each other has become each other's salvation and meaning. If one party completely loses the other party will also be meaningless. Aunt. Nian looked at the secret note in his hand, suddenly smiled, and said firmly, "No matter now or in the future, we will live together forever." Yeah, Diana nodded gently, and a beautiful smile appeared on her face. She held the secret note from Nian in her palm and smiled. "Let's go back. The headquarters of the Destiny Alliance in the devouring space should have prepared a Christmas dinner now. They will be disappointed if you are absent. Let's go back together." Nian nodded and held Diana's hand. Two white lights flashed, and the two disappeared in front of the wishing tree in the park at the same time. Devouring space. For the atmosphere, the artificial sun was turned off, and the night enveloped the headquarters of the Destiny Alliance. I don't know where the snowflakes were simulated falling. The lights inside the building were bright, especially the living room and the dining room were extremely lively, with all kinds of delicious food on the table. A new round of banquets will begin again. Chapter 595. Chapter 596. One night passed. Nian woke up from the bed in a daze. God knows how much the members of the Tianming Alliance headquarters had drunk him at the banquet last night. He was actually drunk. Nian opened his eyes sleepily, and what came into view was the mysterious dome of his room that was like a bright starry sky. This was the same as usual, that's right. But when Nian first woke up, he felt a soft body on each side, and several white and slender arms were still on him. Nian did not move, and his spider sense swept outward, and the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. When his bedroom bed in the Tianming Alliance headquarters was designed in the early stage, it was larger than the usual 2 meters by 2 meters. Because of the spacious bedroom space, the bedroom bed was originally ordered to be 5 by 5. It is 1.5 times the size of a modern ordinary bed, which is even more amazing than the nobles of ancient Western Europe. But now, this ridiculously large bed seems a bit crowded. Under the sheets, several convex and graceful curves are outlined, like an artistic painting under the artificial sunlight from the window. This unfolding is wrong. Smelling the rich aroma and alcohol in the room, Nian didn't dare to move, and continued to close his eyes, trying to recall the Christmas party held at the headquarters of the Destiny Alliance last night. Time goes back to last night. When Nian and his aunt returned to the headquarters of the Destiny Alliance, Alice and Wanda had already prepared a sumptuous dinner. Since Spider-Woman Gwen and Superwoman Kara went back to accompany their families, they did not attend the party. Poison Ivy said that she went out early to find Harley Quinn and Nan Avi, and was not at the scene. Shockwave Sky went to the Sword and did not attend the party last night. Empress Mara returned to the Atlantis Empire in the outside world. Zatanna said that she would go back to the magic show troupe she used to be in, but she did not attend. Raven attended, but went back to the Washington Villa halfway. Phoenix Jean had originally gone to other planets in the devouring universe to accompany her family, but she joined the party temporarily when the party was halfway through. Nian sorted out his thoughts a little and divided the members of the alliance who were not present. In addition, Polaris boss Lorna was there. She drank the most at the whole banquet, and she was the one who sent Nian away in the end. Little Moon was full at the banquet very quickly, and the maid Xiaoqin took her to rest before the banquet was half over. Wanda was there too. She had a poor alcohol tolerance to begin with, and she helped Nian drink a few glasses, which almost made Nian cry. Invisible Woman Susan was there too. She had an unexpectedly good alcohol tolerance, which was the last straw that broke the camel's back for Nian. Towards the end of the banquet, Aunt Diana said she was going to see Little Moon, so she withdrew from the Christmas banquet early. As for Alice, she was at the banquet throughout the whole process, but she didn't drink. She couldn't get drunk with her vibranium body. Yeah. Nian already knew who the 4 members of the Destiny Alliance were at the scene of the crime. Nian quietly came out of his room and closed the door. Turning around, he saw a silver-haired girl looking at him with her eyes wide open in the corridor outside, and he was startled. Alice. Nian immediately frowned, but asked in a low voice, "What happened last night?" Alice pursed her lips and said weakly, "Master, you all got drunk last night, and then hugged each other and couldn't be separated. Then, I can only teleport you back to the room, and then I will clean up the mess of the banquet. You just left me like this." Nian widened his eyes, not knowing whether to praise Alice or punish Alice. However, Alice will definitely be given a special family discipline by Prince today. Nian thought angrily. Alice seemed to know what Nian was thinking, and she exclaimed immediately, and hurriedly put her little hand on her belly wrapped in a dress. Nian suddenly put his hand on Alice's head and gently stroked her silver hair, which was extremely soft. Master, I just got up, it's not good. Alice didn't dodge, but still said timidly, and quickly looked around. You should be taught a lesson at night, now, I'm just doing a test. Nian said unhappily. Test. Alice raised her eyes in doubt and looked at Nian and asked. Nian didn't respond. The next moment, his right palm, which was stroking Alice's hair, glowed with a ball of scarlet and wonderful light. The scarlet light sank into the girl's body, so that Alice's transformed vibranium body became transparent and crystal clear. The red light dissipated. Nian also retracted his hand. Alice, how do you feel now? Very mysterious, I can't tell. Alice closed her eyes, opened them again, and whispered while covering her chest. She has always been a data stream, and this is the first time she has experienced such a stream of consciousness. Try it, imagine something carefully in your mind. Nian pondered for a moment. Okay, Alice did it immediately. Nian used his hands to pry open her fair and slender 5 fingers, and his fingertips gently touched the soft palm, and continued to guide. Then, the thing you imagine should be in your hand at this moment. Alice's face was slightly red, and she felt itchy in her palm, and then she whispered softly, in my hand. A red light flashed in the corridor. Alice's hand had a piece of silver metal, which was also a small piece of rare vibranium metal. Alice was stunned. She knew very well that this was not teleportation or illusion, but a phenomenon that was difficult to explain with technology. Yes, you created this vibranium. Nian affirmed her idea and smiled slightly. This is the ability of fantasy creation. He has the 7th permanent ability, the perfect fantasy creation, without any side effects. Now, in addition to him, Alice also has this godlike ability. Master, what did you do just now? How did you do it? Alice was very surprised. It's all because of you. Nian didn't want to say more. This is his 11th permanent ability, ability inheritance. It comes from the Phoenix girl who inherited the Phoenix power fragment. With this ability, Nian can give her 3 unique permanent abilities other than the Lord of the Dependents. For example, after giving Alice the ability of fantasy creation, Nian can also choose 2 more from Vibranium Body, Spider Sense, Eye of Death, God's Eternal Life, Energy Immunity, Mind Immunity, Emperor's Domain, Emotional Control, and Ability Fluctuation to give Alice. Ability Inheritance. This is really. Nian secretly sighed, if the first 10 permanent abilities are all his personal improvement. Then this 11th permanent ability will make the Destiny Alliance group leap to a new realm. They will truly become the new gods of the devouring space and the outside universe, and have unlimited potential in the future. One day, they will definitely transcend the multiverse and reach the almighty shore of the end. Digression. End. Chapter 597. Gotham, Magic Show Hall. The audience was filled with all kinds of guests. At this time, the guests were very quiet, watching the stunning figure performing magic on the stage. Under the spotlight of the stage, there was a black-haired beauty wearing a rabbit magic hat, a sexy uniform jacket, and black fishnet stockings. Her purple eyes flashed with wisdom and mysterious luster, and her every move showed art and elegance. Between the gestures and dances of the magic cane, floating in the water, passing through metal doors, magic box cutting, grabbing cigarettes in the air, human body suspension. One by one, the high-difficulty magic was performed easily and smoothly, and no one could see the magic flaws in it, just like the real thing. Finally, the curtain call. The beautiful magician took off the rabbit hat, and as the hat was gently raised, there was a crash. And dozens of white doves flew out of it, with wings shining under the light. The white doves flew out of the stage and passed over the heads of the guests below the stage. With the focus lights following, it looked like holy light flashing. This scene was extremely gorgeous, causing the guests to exclaim, "Thank you all." The beautiful magician raised her lips, ended the magic show, and bowed gracefully. Suddenly, as the curtains on both sides of the stage were pulled up, thunderous noises broke out in the audience. Behind the scenes, the staff of the magic troupe also excitedly applauded and praised. "It's really wonderful. You haven't been on stage for so long, and you can perform master-level magic as soon as you come back. Miss Zatanna, you are worthy of it. It's inseparable from your preparation." Zatanna smiled slightly, with beauty and elegance, instantly stunning everyone on the scene. "Miss Zatanna, are you leaving again after coming back this time?" Someone asked expectantly. Zatanna was obviously absent-minded for a moment, not knowing what she was thinking, and then smiled and shook her head. "I shouldn't leave." Back to the exclusive lounge, the closed door blocked the applause and discussion outside. Zatanna sat on the chair, gently stroking her high chest with her palm, feeling depressed and a little lonely. But at this moment, the door of the lounge was suddenly opened. I want to be alone. Zatanna instinctively frowned, but when she saw the person coming in, she quickly stopped talking in a daze. Zatanna hurriedly stood up from the chair. Why are you here? Others can come, why can't I come? Nian blinked, stared at her, and closed the door. In addition, how can you miss the performance of the magician? Just some tricks. Zatanna dodged his gaze and lowered her head and asked, are you here to persuade me to go back? Nian replied, no, you can stay outside as long as you want. Zatanna was unhappy instead. Nian raised his lips, I heard from my aunt that you want to withdraw from the Destiny Alliance. Zatanna nodded slightly, well, now the multiverse journey is over, the Destiny Alliance will not be less or more than me. You want to withdraw from the Destiny Alliance, it's up to you, but I didn't say I approve it. Nian changed the subject. How can you do this? Zatanna looked at Nian, her chest heaving, and her beautiful eyebrows twisted. I founded the Destiny Alliance, so I have the final say on the agreements and treaties. Nian smiled proudly, took a few steps forward, approached Zatanna, and said inexplicably, you were there at the end of the last Christmas party, right? I don't understand. Zatanna's body trembled, and her earlobes quickly turned red, not knowing whether it was because of the hot air. Nian shrugged, then explained to me, how did my 12th permanent ability, magic immunity, come from? That's right, when he got the 11th ability, Nian found another new permanent ability. So on the night of the Christmas party, in addition to the 4 people who stayed at the scene, there must be another person who sneaked away after finishing the job. When Zatanna's body couldn't stop shaking, Nian raised the corner of his mouth, stared at Zatanna's purple eyes, and slowly said, there is only one truth. In the end, because Zatanna's crime was proven, she signed a series of unequal treaties under Nian's oppression. For example, she could not withdraw from the Destiny Alliance, and she must fulfill the obligations of the Alliance, etc. Leaving the magic show with the guests who had left. Nian did not return to the devouring space, but went to another place in Gotham City. Poison Ivy has not returned yet, and she has specially conveyed a message to him. The message did not reveal too much, but only marked a detailed address for him to go there alone. It should be here. Nian came to a deserted bar, and was speechless the moment he pushed the door and stepped in. He saw a big guy who was 2 meters tall blocking the doorway leading to the inner bar. Chew, chew. A bloody mouth was approaching, with sharp teeth grinding back and forth. It was undoubtedly able to swallow an adult alive. Nian suddenly understood why no one came to this bar. When he pushed the door open and saw this scene, he was probably scared to death. Boss! The shark monster, standing like a human, had bright eyes, stopped grinding its teeth, and looked at him excitedly. Nanoe, I haven't seen you for 2 years, and you are still the same, where is Poison Ivy? Nian patted the other person's white belly and asked. Nanoe slightly turned his bloated body to make room for others to walk with him. He looked into the bar with his dazed eyes and stood still without any intention of leading anyone in. Let me go in alone, right? Nian understood what he meant and immediately walked into the bar alone through the passage. The main hall inside the bar was also empty, with only a few dim lights on. The door leading to the underground warehouse was open, and several poison ivy plants were growing beside the door. Nian sensed the location of the poison ivy girl and walked towards the door without stopping. The thorny poison ivy took the initiative to open the passage for him. What's going on, so mysterious? Nian became more and more curious and walked down the dark and lightless stairs until he came to a small dark room. He knew that the poison ivy girl was inside. Nian pushed open the door. Although it was still pitch black inside, the spider sense was not affected. When the scene inside the house appeared clearly in his mind, Nian was like being struck by lightning. He widened his eyes. It was an extremely erotic scene. A curve of Snow White appeared in the darkness, and some strange things were entangled on the Snow White. As if aware of Nian's arrival, the owner twisted his body slightly, and immediately made a sound of iron chains hitting each other, causing the temptation to spread in the darkness. That was not poison ivy. Nian didn't think too much and closed the door of the small dark room. Chapter 598. Boom. A family in Queens, New York. Coming, coming. Hearing the knock on the door, Peter Parker hurriedly put on his suit jacket, came to the door with an astonishing leap, quickly buttoned up the button, and opened the door. Outside the door was a handsome silver-haired young man of the same age. He had already put on a brand new suit jacket with a delicate purple bow on the collar. Pietro, why are you here? Peter Parker asked in surprise, and then he took out a pattern bow from his pocket and put it on. The two studied in the same high school, and it was only later that they found out that the eldest brother they met was actually the same person. "You are also one of the groomsmen, why are you so late?" Quicksilver Pietro said angrily, his body was so fast that it was blurry under the extreme speed. He helped Peter tidy up his clothes and said, "I'll take you there." "Okay, I'll get something, right now." Peter Parker responded quickly and hurried back into the house. Since Aunt May had gone to prepare early, he was the only one left at home. 3 minutes later, Quicksilver Pietro took Peter Parker and disappeared into an afterimage in front of the wooden house. Just half a minute after they left, a Martian portal appeared in the house, and Dr. Stephen Strange, who was also wearing a formal suit and tie, walked out of it. He looked at the empty wooden house blankly. "Where are the people?" "Washington, Great Hall. A few days ago, because this auditorium was bought by Future Anniversary Company with a huge sum of money, it undoubtedly became a breaking news that local people were talking about. But today, people know that what happened before was just small news. Outside the auditorium, there is a brand new intelligent robot manufactured in the future as an entrance security guard. As cars stopped in the square in front of the auditorium, the people invited to attend were all world-famous people. In the park outside the auditorium, reporters squatting at a distance were stunned. "Really or not, is that Captain America?" "Yes, next to him are Black Widow, Hawkeye, and Falcon. Ant-Man is here too. Is this the Avengers Assembly?" The reporters were a little confused. Many of the veteran heroes of the Avengers had retired a few years ago. This is a rare gathering. Is this another world-ending crisis? However, these superheroes are now wearing suits and formal dresses, and they look very fashionable and decent. When a middle-aged couple got out of the car with a few-year-old girl in hand, the reporters started going crazy. "Oh my God, that's the Iron Man couple from Stark Industries, Tony Stark and Pepper Potts. They actually have a daughter, we haven't seen them appear for several years. What do I see? That's Bruce Wayne from Wayne Industries. Also, Cyborg and Martian Manhunter, one of the members of the Justice League." Many figures cut through the sky and landed on the auditorium square. Among them, a tall and strong figure is extremely eye-catching. That's Superman. However, under the distant gaze of these reporters, Superman seemed a little angry and rushed into the auditorium holding a knife-like bouquet. Outside, reporters and passers-by noticed this scene and exploded. What's going on today? The gathering of new and old members of the Avengers and Justice League? There are many other figures, but from such a long distance, it's hard to see who they are. The reporters outside had red eyes and wanted to rush into the auditorium, but they were in despair when faced with the intelligent robots blocking the perimeter like a wall. Not just old and new members of the Avengers and Justice League. On this day, Junior League, Hell Club, the Royal Family of Atlantis, the Eternals, the former Suicide Squad, Gotham's Four Robins, Nick Fury, Director of S.H.I.E.L.D. The King of Wakanda, Deadpool, Deathstroke. Regardless of superheroes or supervillains, from the Skyward Sword Bureau to the Undersea Empire, almost all the supernatural beings on Earth are here. Those bad guys are here too. The members of the Junior League wearing small suits glared fiercely at the White Queen and Leopard Girl who appeared calmly not far away in the presence of a group of superheroes. But in the end no one started to fight, it was all a favor to the owner of the auditorium. "Only that person's wedding can be like this, right, Barbara?" The White Queen smiled. She was wearing a gorgeous diamond dress and looked at the Leopard Girl wearing a yellow dress. Leopard Girl Barbara did not speak, her beautiful eyes looked at the auditorium in front of her with a somewhat absent-minded look. "Mr. Wayne." Iron Man Tony Stark glanced at Batman Bruce Wayne who was alone next door and said hello, "Are you coming to the wedding too?" Bruce Wayne nodded lightly. "Well, after all, Kara is also a member of the Justice League." "What?" Tony Stark was stunned for a moment. "Isn't today Gwen's wedding?" "Gwen?" Bruce Wayne also frowned, knowing that Gwen was Spider-Woman. To be honest, it is impossible to make a mistake in such a big event as getting married. The youngest daughter Morgan, who was held by Tony Stark, blinked and asked crisply, "Is there a possibility that they are together?" Many people thought it was a child's talk, but if they thought about it carefully, it seemed that it could be explained by that person. Devouring space. The inner artificial planet civilization also has a festive atmosphere. Even Starro went out of his way to create more than a dozen artificial novae, which either lingered in the star belt, burned with fire, or flashed with light, making the current area of the universe suddenly bright and gorgeous. At this time, the headquarters of the Destiny Alliance. In the magnificent and carefully decorated main hall, housekeeper Alice and maid Xiao-Qin were applying makeup to a beautiful figure. Wearing a white gauze wedding dress, the beautiful figure became more and more beautiful. Kara, are you nervous? Senior, it seems a little bit. Gwen and Kara looked at each other, squeaked, and couldn't help but laugh softly. Other room. The magical girl Cassie Sandmark, who was wearing a bridesmaid outfit, had eyes full of amazement. She looked at the mirror next to her, reflecting a flawless figure wearing a white gauze. Is that okay? The voice asked softly and elegantly. No problem at all, perfect. The magical girl shook her head violently and muttered sincerely, I envy him so much. Of course, I also envy Sister Diana in front of me. The magical girl couldn't help but think. Another room. Are you ready? Lorna, who was wearing a corseted wedding dress, felt a little light and uncomfortable and wanted to get off the chair, but was quickly pushed down by Wanda and the phantom cat on both sides. Sister, my hair is still not done. Wanda picked up the comb, put up her green hair and said. Yes, this is something you can't do carelessly, even if you could go back in time, you wouldn't be able to experience it again. Phantom cat Katie knelt down and carefully adjusted the hem of her wedding dress. All right. Lorna sighed and sat patiently. Then she quickly thought of something and asked softly, Wanda, is it really okay? Wanda paused for a moment, then said firmly, I am the maid of the Prince family, and this will not change. She smiled and said, anyway, no matter what, we will always be together. Outside corridor. Other members of the Destiny Alliance, Sky, Mara, Poison Ivy, Phoenix, Zatanna, etc. hurriedly walked in with gorgeous gauze skirts, like the most beautiful scenery. They asked almost in unison, have you seen Nian? Master, you haven't been here all this time, Wanda asked curiously. Isn't he in the outside world? Mara complained, but he's not in the auditorium either, it's already this time, where did he go all of a sudden? Don't worry, Little Moon has already gone to find him, Lorna said with a reassuring expression. The girls were silent, this was even more unreliable. At this time, the outside world. In Washington, on the pedestrian street where people come and go, a handsome young man who looks like an ordinary person is pacing gently. Walking alone on the same path to high school. Nian feels that only 10 years have passed, but it seems as long as an era has passed. From school to the world, and from the world to diversity, too many things and encounters have happened. From an ordinary student living with Aunt Diana, until today, as the multidimensional controller of the American comics universe and the metaverse. From being surrounded by one or two people, to now being surrounded by everyone. Nian was in a trance, as if everything was just a dream that had been immersed in for too long and was incredibly real. Dad! But at this moment, a clear and familiar call sounded from the side of the pedestrian street. Nian came to his senses, looked back and saw a girl with twin tails in a cute dress waving to him. Little Moon, why are you here? Nian stepped forward and picked up the black-haired girl. The girl was so angry that she pouted and said, Moms, you said you ran away and asked me to take you back. Really? Then let's go back. Nian smiled slightly, then froze quickly. His stagnant gaze fell on the girl's neck. Well, who gave it to you? Did you say this? The girl lowered her head and looked at the silver cross necklace on her neck. It was given to me by a beautiful aunt just now, she is right there. Nian looked along her little finger and saw a figure holding a black umbrella, disappearing into the vast sea of people and disappearing completely in a flash. And this? The girl secretly took out the thing hidden behind her back. It was a bear doll with repair patches on the front and back. Nian was stunned for a moment, then smiled, this is Dad's treasure, you have to take good care of it. Ah, it's not my mother's again, is it? The girl seemed to understand, with a troubled face. Correct answer. Nian admitted with a smile. He did not catch up, but hugged the girl and returned to the devouring space. Nian knows. One day, they will meet again, maybe tomorrow, maybe at an ordinary intersection. Because of their fate, death did not cut them off. The end.